Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 223 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it's me, Karak with ACG.
Hey, we got through the first 5 seconds without fucking up. How about that?
We did. We did. Something's going to go wrong. I just know it. I'm just joking. Hopefully not.
Either that or the dogs. One or the other. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, that'll for sure.
How are you doing otherwise?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Took a nice shower. Have you ever, sometimes you take a shower and you don't really smell anything, but like sometimes you get out of the shower and you just keep smelling yourself, like you move your head, you'll catch a little whiff of your shampoo or something like that. For you, do you use a little beard shampoo? And sometimes you get that in your face?
I just normally use normal shampoo, but my wife has like this coconut stuff, and I can smell it like 2 hours afterwards.
Is it great? Is it a good coconut? Because I don't like coconut, so.
I'm not a big fan of coconut, to be honest, but it's better than like chemical smelling ones.
Okay.
Like you'll get like whatever a normal one would be, but I'm also not a big fan of smells overall. Like if they're like not like floral, rose is fine, but a lot of ones are like fruity, and that it always smells fake.
Okay,
or it smells fake.
I thought you were gonna say you're like a bar soap guy, like you don't use any type of scented anything.
Oh, I'll use, if I can find unscented soaps, I'll use them. But my wife always has like ivory, like the green and white ivory bar, and that's usually what I use. Yeah. I don't like, I have I'm always, my wife always jokes that I can smell stuff like a mile away. So I'll be like, something's burning. She'll be like, no, nothing is. And then 20 minutes later, we'll find out some socket burned funny.
Out. There was one time I had like a superhuman moment where I walked into the living room and I smelled iron, like blood type iron. I'm like,
right,
why does it smell like iron? And then like a minute later, my dad's nose starts bleeding. I'm like, what the
Dude, mine's like that. Mine's enough that friends will be bothered because they'll come over, and if they have food that smells a little off, like something like from like Baja Fresh or something that's got like a really pungent odor, I'm the first guy that like a mile away, they're walking up the driveway, and I'm all, dude, don't eat that shit in here. I think it just overpowers me. It gives me, especially when it's really pungent, it starts to bother me.
I feel you. Well, welcome to a gaming podcast, everybody. We hope you enjoy your stay. We want to start off by thanking everybody. We've been getting more and more tweets at the end of our episode. For those who don't know, if you stay till the final moments, we usually just toss a hashtag out there to get a little extra interaction, see how many of you guys stick with us till the end of the episode. Just because for us, it's neat to see when we have like an episode last week, which was funny enough, episode 222 was 2 hours long, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds long.
Yeah, I saw somebody post that.
Pretty insane. But we just like to see who sticks around. You don't get like rewarded for anything, but you just get a good sense of accomplishment, and we feel good on the other end because we know we kept your attention or sat there as background noise, whichever we'll take, for that entire time, and we appreciate that. So I just want to thank everybody because we've been getting a lot more of those lately, which is nice. Yeah. It shows some consistency because it's usually like it was like originally the same like 4 people, and then it's really grown, and we're getting more and more, probably because we're begging for it now.
Hey, that works.
Yeah, hey, we'll take it. Anyway, as always, if you'd like to get involved with the show in a different way, you can support us on Patreon. We'll have a link to that in the description down below. If you're a $1 patron, you get early access to this podcast 2 days ahead of time. The moment that I'm done recording this, it goes right up on the Patreon, and you can get early access right there. We used to do it through SoundCloud, but that was just money wasted for a couple of years. I used to pay for these yearly subscriptions, and then Patreon's like, hey, let us host the audio, and what a game changer it was. So, you can get it immediately on the Patreon. Patreon does have an app, so you can listen on the go through this app. I use it in the car plenty when I listen to some podcasts that I am supporting currently. So just something worth keeping in mind. If you want to go up a little bit, $3, you can get yourself into the Discord, one of the best communities in gaming, hands down. And also, you can find Karak's Patreon. Karak, are you doing anything special over on yours?
Right now, I got 2 more of the YouTubers who want to miss the problems that you and I experienced. So that's like the new thing I'm doing, or not the new thing, but additional thing I'm doing right now. Gotcha. As for the Patron itself, we're just doing B-movies and UFC events every Saturday in the chat, which has really helped. It's been a blast to talk to people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny when you have that connection. I have someone who I have to send an invite to, but I was playing DBS, the card game. As a lot of people who watch the video version of the podcast will note, the background is almost always coded in a ton of playing cards from Dragon Ball because I'm always like assembling and deassembling decks. And so there's only this one website online. It's called Untap, where you can play against people online. And because it doesn't have like an official support. It has an app, but it's a tutorial app. You can't play online against people. So when you're testing decks, it's either play in person, which I have an option to do that like twice a week, maybe if I'm lucky.
Right.
Or you can go online on this computer app thing. So I was actually on there, and someone hopped into my game and was like, "Are you Matty?" And it was just funny, like sharing an interest, which I've never had, by the way, with this card game. It's kind of niche, and meeting a viewer through there, and then like talking and saying like, "Hey man, I'll sling you a Discord invite, in case you ever want to chat about this game again." So it is awesome meeting like patrons or viewers or listeners, whatever you want to refer to yourself as, and sharing a common hobby and love with them. Because I've been playing this game for about a year and a half, and he's like, "I just started 4 weeks ago." I'm like, "Oh man, a new guy, got to teach him everything." So really cool feeling there. Anyway, we thank you guys so much for supporting us, and now that we've rambled enough, let's get into the news. So it was a pretty jam-packed week in the sense of really important things happening, but not jam-packed in the terms of context. We really only have technically 3 news pieces to go over this week, but we have obviously patron questions throughout, and what we're playing to supplement the discussion. So let's start off what I'd say is the most pertinent news topic for my channel. Maybe not for the industry-wide. Our next topic will likely be that, which is Doom Eternal was delayed to March 20th, 2020. So we have the message from id Software here on their Twitter account that I'll read off, and then we'll give our thoughts. So throughout the development of Doom Eternal, our goal has been to deliver a game that exceeds your greatest expectations across the board, to make sure we're delivering the best experience for Doom Eternal, to live up to our standards of speed and polish. We've made the decision to extend our launch dates by a few months to March 20th, 2020. We know many fans will be disappointed by this delay, but we are confident that Doom Eternal will deliver a gaming experience that is worth the wait. In addition to shifting the Doom Eternal launch date, we've made a couple of other changes we wanted you to know about. Number 1 is Invasion Mode, which will allow you to enter another player's game as a playable demon, will release as a free update shortly after launch. So think of, for example, Dark Souls, where someone could invade your game, which I think, by the way, this is really cool. Doom Eternal for Nintendo Switch will release after the other platforms. We will announce that date in the future, so that one got delayed even further back. Doom 64 will be available on the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC, in addition to the Nintendo Switch. We are adding Doom 64 as a pre-order bonus for Doom Eternal on all platforms, so you'll be able to download and play this classic game for free just for pre-ordering Doom Eternal. Doom 64 will be released on March 20th, 2020, so the same day as Doom Eternal. I don't know who's going to be hopping into that game that very day. But anyway, they say they are grateful to every Doom fan for their dedication and support. They can't wait to rip and tear alongside us, and then they sign it from id Software. So, Karak, surprised or not, and what are your general thoughts on this delay?
Can you read your Discord? I have a question for you before I give my answer.
Okay, let's give it a look here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not surprised because little birdie told me that it was that was the, I think, even the month that this was that somebody, the company had wanted this to happen. So if I had not known that, I would say I haven't been as high on that game as other people have from what I saw. So I'm not as surprised just because it didn't look to be capturing what I thought that Doom's 2016?
Yes.
Yeah, 2000. Jeez, it's been 3 years.
That's right when we first started talking.
Yeah. So to me, it's hard to know how surprised I would have been had I not know that there was a desire to delay it in the first place. I do think it's interesting that they're delaying that multiplayer mode, but also good. And I would say that despite my surprise or lack of surprise, it's good that they're doing it. This is a hard year. There's going to be a lot of big games. They may not be the big games that a lot of people think of as big games, but there are going to be a lot that are holding the PR and like the attention of gamers. Mm-hmm. So to me, March is a good time. I personally think it's a great time to release that game, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I share the same feeling of a lack of surprise. I thought the only surprise was like within the 24-hour window of me talking about how I thought things were kind of quiet for both Doom and Fallout 76's Wastelanders, that they announced this delay. So that was the surprise factor for me. But when it came to Doom Eternal, I kind of thought it was a little it's sad in the sense of release windows, because outside of The Outer Worlds and I guess a little bit Modern Warfare, there really isn't anything else for me this year that I'm looking forward to or that I'm big on. Obviously, The Outer Worlds, if that didn't exist this fall, it would be pretty boring for me, to be honest, because it would have just been Greedfall and Borderlands 3. But yeah, I think pushing Doom back is obviously a good thing. March, though, I think I disagree with you a little bit, just because, I mean, it's launching in a window where there's just so many choices to make, and all of them look very high quality.
What are the other ones?
So there is, I think, a week and a half or 2 weeks after is Cyberpunk, unless that gets delayed. There is still a chance of that. It releases on the same day as Animal Crossing. Now, I'm not going to say that Animal Crossing fans cross over with Doom fans consistently. I think
but
that's
still,
it's a game, right?
Coverage, yeah.
It's coverage. It's a game. It's $60 going one way or the other. And then I think a week before that, 2 weeks before that, in that month, is Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I think is a really big deal, and that would share, I think, a little bit of overlap because these are two classic franchises.
When's Cyberpunk coming out?
April 16th?
So I forgot about
Early
Cyberpunk. I would agree with you for sure. I think the biggest overlap, obviously, is going to be Doom and Cyberpunk. So yeah, definitely I could see that. I could see that affecting like the longevity of people continuing to play it, because you may like Doom, you may jump into it, but then Cyberpunk comes out, and if it's like Witcher in its length and stuff,
oh god,
people will be probably playing that versus Doom.
Well, that's the thing nowadays is people will pick up a game, and I think for maybe a developer, you just want to make sure you get your foot in the door, and hopefully you can call them back later. But people will just fly through a game and be like, all right, on to the next one, which I'm guilty of. And then there's nothing wrong with that. But it's really hard to have that staying power in an industry where it's games that demand a ton of your time, and especially in 2020, you know, I don't want to assume every game's going to be great, but it is lining up to be one of those years where, I mean, it looks like it can be a tremendous one. There's a lot of big launches lined up. This year was sort of there were great launches, great games, plenty I can name. But it did, in a sense, feel like the in-betweener year before the next generation, kind of like how we had last time with the 360 and PS3 before transitioning into 2013, where we started to see like a really last good year of games before the next generation had launched.
Right.
So ultimately, I think Doom is in for a little bit of competition. And I think this will lead to monetization. I'm not saying that because I've heard anything. That's just my own speculation. I really think the only way that they convinced ZeniMax was like, hey, okay, we'll put some skins in here, some cosmetics in here. We'll make it up in the long tail and try to keep people engaged. Because there is like a substantial interest in Doom Eternal, but I don't know. This is a series I've had struggles gauging how successful it will be sales-wise. Because you know, Bethesda has published a lot of really good games in their history. I'm not talking about recently, but the original Wolfenstein games like 1 and 2, although 2 is a little controversial, but Prey, really good. Dishonored, really good. Dishonored 2, I thought was really good. But all these games consistently didn't sell a lot. So I just wonder where Doom Eternal really does rank in popularity and how much it can sell.
Yeah, and I don't think... I personally... I think if it had not been called Doom Eternal, but like Doom 2019 or Doom 2, it probably would have had a better chance. I think something about Eternal also just makes people think a service game, a game that is going to be like spread out. And I haven't heard like, for example, I can't tell you the last time that I could look it up, but the last time that was mentioned in my Discord, like legit couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
I would say there's a higher chance of Rage 2 having been mentioned in my Discord more recently than Doom Eternal. And I do have some pretty big Bethesda fans, Doom fans, sorry, overall, but they just haven't been talking about it as much. So yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who ran, I'd say a centric Bethesda channel for a while, you know, I have a lot of people who still love Bethesda stuff, and if it's any assurance on what you were saying, I haven't heard much about it either. You know, I think it's because the smart choice is they're getting it out of the late fall, because that can be really helpful, like a Darksiders 3, where that game came out and still managed to sell well for its own standards. So it's not like games are down and out at that point of the year, especially when it was the one that kind of reviewed Some said it was good. Some said it was eh. I was one of the people who said eh. It still managed to find some success. So it's kind of good that Doom escaped that part where maybe there's a little consumer fatigue. Because I think this time around, people are probably stuffing their cash in their pocket outside of a couple of games, since early 2020 is going to be very packed.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah, I just don't quite know where the focus is too, because we really haven't heard a ton about the same. It seems like this game had a bunch of different ideas too. Like, it was like, oh, we've got our single player, but we've got this eternal mode, plus we've got a multiplayer of some kind, and it just seems like it was a little watered down.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. A lot of people really get upset when I say it, but I was one of the people who said I liked Doom, the 2016 version, quite a bit. I enjoyed it, and I gave it a recommendation when I had completed it. I just told people, hey, it's great, but it does get a little repetitive with its glory kills, and I started to see forum posts popping up when I was researching Doom Eternal recently saying how the glory kills already looked a little repetitive, and how how much fun could it be running around in a shooting arena where you're just blasting everything. You're not really targeting like weak points. It's sort of just fun, fast action, which is its own sense of enjoyment for a lot of folks. So I'm not going to tell them what they can and can't find fun, but I think a second time around, people may not find some of the main hooks in the first Doom as satisfying. Because I remember when I first watched Doom in 2015 when it got revealed by Bethesda at E3, and everyone was looking for Fallout 4, but that was the big shocker because everyone was like, "Holy crap, man! Like, this game is bloody. It's got some insane kills," and so there was that wow effect going into it. And by the end of the journey, some people were like still into it. People like me were not. I just think Doom Eternal can wear down people a little bit quicker now that they know what to expect. That's kind of what I've been trying to tell people. Doom was great because it was a good game, but there was this surprise factor the whole way. There was like the whole review copy fiasco at Bethesda. There was a lot of uncertainty about games they were publishing. They certainly weren't promoting this one. It just looked cool from a quick gameplay look. And it came out and it really wowed people with a meaty single-player campaign. So people are expecting that now. So how does id raise the bar? And that's why maybe you're feeling a little bit of they're sort of all over the place here.
It just definitely feels like, even in their marketing and even when they've done interviews and stuff, where I'm like, all right, I get the different things you're talking about, but it just never feels like also the single player stuff, they just never really showed a bunch, which might be why they're delaying it too. But it never grabbed me and made me go, I got it.
So just to list out some options so people know how crowded the beginning of the year is, I'm just going to list some big releases. January looks relatively simple. I'm on Game Informer right now, and it says Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is the 17th of January, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition is January 23rd, and Journey to the Savage Planet is January 28th. Now, I don't know who's interested in the latter two. I'm just interested in DBZ at that point as a gigantic DBZ fan. But when you move into February, it gets a little bit more cramped. There's Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, which is the new Arc System fighter, which looks incredibly good graphically. And they always make solid fighters. So that's February 6th. Then there's Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which is February 11th. Yeah. Another great looking game. Ori was fantastic when it came out, I think in 2014. So 6 years coming for that one. Last of Us Part 2, February 21st. That's a really big one. Gods and Monsters releasing 4 days afterwards from Ubisoft. That's kind of the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild inspired game from them. Then we move into March. Obviously, the games I listed there have already been mentioned, but there was one I missed, which is March 6th. It is Watch Dogs Legion. So 4 pretty substantial games sitting in there. And then April 16th, I was correct, is Cyberpunk, but nothing else is sitting in April. So obviously the year will fill out with more games, but that's just something to consider for where Doom's putting itself.
I do think Ori is going to be delayed, by the way. Ori.
Yeah, that I could see that.
Yeah,
like
there's been
game.
No mention. Yeah, there just hasn't been any mention of it at all, and I mean, it's
I've just
really
seen
been quiet.
More talk of people wanting the Switch port, which eventually happened. That's what I saw in the news cycle. Yeah. Like leaks about that. Nothing about.
It hasn't really been about them, and what they're showing yet or anything.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be early, but I think by now we would have got something. And it just feels like maybe behind the scenes, maybe they're just heads down. That's totally fine.
Could be.
But it feels a little bit like maybe that'll just be quietly delayed.
Wasn't there a game? Was it?
Well, look at Biomutant. We still don't even know where that is.
Yeah, wow,
Release schedule.
that's a really good one. And I was thinking of a game that got delayed in the beginning of the year. I think it was like Super Meat Boy 2 or something like that.
Oh, gotcha.
Was it?
I don't follow that one.
I
don't follow that.
Is that a game that actually exists, or am I thinking of the wrong one? They put out a letter pretty much saying, hey, we're going to delay the game because we don't want to burn out our workers, and it'll be out soon, but we don't have a date for it yet. And then like it just fell off the map. I think it was Super Meat Boy 2. Was it? Hold on, let me double check.
Yeah, because that's one game that I never really got into the original either, so I don't really know what they've even said.
It was Super Meat Boy Forever was what it was called. Delayed, now launching not too far after April is what they called it. I think this was it. Yeah, but I haven't heard anything since then. Interesting. Someone can correct me on that. Tommy says Super Meat Boy Forever delay. I'm terrible at estimating time. So I guess it was delayed, and they were like, yeah, we kind of messed up on it. All right, so yeah, game delays suck, but we want the game to be at its best, and hopefully Doom Eternal finds some success. So let's move into our next topic.
I have a question. One question
go
for you.
for it.
So remember how Rage, we talked about that? So Rage 2 was hit and miss for people. Ignoring that for a second, though, I think everybody agreed that it didn't feel like it was PR pushed near like what the expectation was. And we found that all this year, in fact. There's been some good games and bad games that haven't got the PR push. Do you actually feel like Doom is going to get a PR push? Because that's another thing that if they do move around the dates, you have to move all your PR, right? And a lot of people, I'm sure, are putting their PR behind Cyberpunk, even if it's preview videos or top 10 things about, those kind of things from a lot of people who don't have, it's just them or it's just a couple people at their office, so they don't have a bunch of people to cover other games. I think that's actually what I'm a little bit more worried about, is that we won't see like a big amount of support.
Right.
Like in like it heads up prior to it coming out. And I don't know why I feel that way. It just feels like, it feels like we sort of didn't get it even for Doom, now that I think about it.
Yeah,
I don't remember now that I think about it.
Doom, we definitely can get a PR push. A lot of people were telling me in my video before the delay happened in the comments, they were going like, well, Matty, they didn't really do this for Doom 2016. And I always go back to my statement of like, you got to realize different situation here. That worked then to some extent will not work now.
Yeah, right.
The industry's a lot more cutthroat. So
it just feels to me like there's a chance it's just gonna be out there.
Yeah, because
people are gonna be like, oh, Doom came out.
I feel that Rage 2 did get a good push because there was that ARG happening that I covered where there was the leak on Walmart Canada, and then the Rage Twitter account was active for the first time in I think like 5 years, and they sent out a tweet to Walmart Canada saying like, hey, what's the big deal? And then Bethesda started tweeting out like little cryptic photos, and like myself and a bunch of other YouTubers were analyzing it, talking about, is this Starfield from Bethesda? Is this Rage 2? And then there were a lot of trailers, a lot of like cool gameplay clips showing off what was happening with Rage, like in terms of powers. So I thought Rage 2 did get a lot of promotion. I just don't think it grabbed as many people as they expected it to, because they thought, oh, open world guns, that should sell people. And it sold me. I thought it was fun as hell, but it didn't sell everybody else.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but it feels like that PR push isn't what I'm...
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it wasn't condensed. It was like a Twitter thing.
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't like it was not
boom,
mass marketing.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it wasn't mass marketing, and you're not wrong for feeling that, because that's what spawned my discussion this past week when I was talking about Doom and Wastelanders and them being oddly quiet about it. Because I said with Wolfenstein Youngblood, that was a game that so many people were like, whoa, wait, this is coming out? And like Bethesda talked about it not at all. They even gave it a very tiny look at E3, and we heard nothing about these two games I was just talking about. And where I started to note to people, when Bethesda's quiet, it's never a good sign.
Yeah, exactly.
When they believe in something, like they clearly believed, I felt, in Rage 2, and I think it showed, because I thought the game was fun. Not everyone thought it was fun. It wasn't a big hit. That's fine. But they clearly believed in it enough to put money into promoting it. But with Doom, obviously, as Karak and I have mentioned, we knew that there were like internal conversations going on about a delay hitting this game, so I think they were hesitant to start putting marketing into it. And as time got closer, it'd probably put on some pressure. By the way, this is not what I've been told. I'm just guessing. It'd probably put on some pressure saying, like, we got a month, and you're telling us, like, we can't delay this, but now we have no marketing for our game, so you're just sending us out to die. Yeah. So now you should delay this so we can market it and get the best product out. So I imagine that's how things ended up. But, yeah, when it comes to Wastelanders, which is now Bethesda's only fall thing, there hasn't been any promotion for that, which instills no confidence. I just feel they're a company that wears their heart on their sleeve in a sense which I know sounds funny because a lot of people call them greedy, which I agree with in many forms. But you can tell when they believe in something and when they don't believe in something. It's very, very, very apparent. So, yeah, we'll see if Doom just gets placed out there or not. I think it'll depend on their confidence in the product. All right. Now we get into the PlayStation 5. Karak, I have a huge write-up coming from Kotaku, which is just a bullet point article. It sort of breaks down everything that was in the big Wired article, pretty much announcing that PlayStation 5 is coming in the holiday of 2020. And what a strange way to announce this console, I felt. But anyway, allow me to read the bullet points, and we'll get into our thoughts generally on what Sony's up to. It will be called the PlayStation 5 and be out for holiday 2020. The console will have a solid-state drive. Games will be released on 100-gigabyte discs. The PlayStation 5 reads physical media via a 4K Blu-ray disc drive. As with games this generation, they will need to be installed from the disc, though Sony is now saying the players will have more granular control over which parts of the game they uninstall or install, aka the multiplayer, the campaign, etc., which I thought was really cool. So if you want to sign in one night, say you're downloading Call of Duty, we'll just use that because that's on the head right now. You want to play the multiplayer with your friends, you can install just the multiplayer, get that going, and then maybe go to bed, start installing the campaign, put your system on rest mode, and install that overnight so the next day you wake up and you can just get started with whatever you want. So a little more control there. The PS5's revised user interface will show more information about what can be done in a game, including the availability of multiplayer matches. Wired's writer held a prototype of the PlayStation 5 controller and wrote that it will seem similar to a PS4 controller. It will include a speaker, and here comes some of the jargon you'll start to see reporters and game makers using to discuss next-gen hardware. Adaptive triggers that can offer varying levels of resistance to make shooting a bow and arrow feel like a real thing. Wired was also impressed with the improved haptics/rumble in the controller, reporting this of their time using it to play demos created by the Studio Japan team behind PSVR game Astrobot Rescue Mission. On ice, a high-frequency response made the thumbstick really feel like my character was gliding. Jumping into a pool, I got a sense of resistance of the water on a wooden bridge, a bouncy sensation. For those of you who stocked up on micro USB wires for PlayStation 4, too bad. The PlayStation 5 controllers will charge with a USB Type 5. Hey, I don't give a fuck as long as the controller stays charged. One studio that is now confirmed as a PS5 developer is Bluepoint Games, makers of the 2018 Shadow of the Colossus remake. Said studio president Marco Thrush to Wired, "We're working on a big one right now. I'll let you figure out the rest." Clearly a tease that Sony has bought the rights to F-Zero and is making a new one. Thrush that was enthusiastic about the speedier loading that comes with an SSD, noting that there will be less reason to slow players down in hallways and doorways to mask the loading of new levels. So open worlds become more open. Getting towards the end here, Sony's announcements today primarily focused on the new controller, which is the main focus of the Sony Interactive Entertainment president Jim Ryan's blog post today. Game creators have started to receive early versions of the new controller, he wrote. We can't wait to see where their imagination goes with these new features at their disposal. With controllers going out, the news today seems designed to get ahead of any leaks of the device. We will have plenty more about the PS5. Okay, so yeah. And hold on, there's a correction. This post originally misstated the type of Blu-ray player that was in the PS4 Pro. The PS5's is an improvement of an actual 4K player. Okay. So that's all that's in the PS5. Just a general summary of the gigantic Wired article that's out there now that you can read for yourself. Karak, how do you feel about a PlayStation 5 I said this fall. Wow, imagine that. Next fall. And Are you excited by anything you heard in that article?
I don't feel like we heard anything new, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard about haptic triggers from Xbox.
Xbox already has the rumble triggers, yeah, and they do help on racing games. I will say that I hope there's a setting for medium, high, and low force for pushback, because a person's probably, depending on how they play the game, may not want pushback on a racing game for hours, because just your finger, the difference between a steering wheel and just your finger is the finger muscles. Anybody who's played a game, for example, where you hold the guard down in a game, will tell you like their hand starts to hurt, and it doesn't take very long. This would be a trigger that might be pushing back. Xbox already stated they were doing haptics, so they're sort of even on that. That Kotaku write-up also did not include the most, I think, stunning thing for me, which is that Sony has made it clear that they actually are just now starting on PS4 compatibility, and they do not know if they can do full PS4 backwards compat, which that was surprising to me. They did have a little hidden tweet, or not hidden, but it wasn't in the main, where it was like, we are now starting on looking, we are now having our teams look into if we can do full compatibility on PS4 titles.
So why would they promise that first and then say that? That's weird.
I don't know, because Microsoft has made it clear they all will be. I don't know if Sony's got a title that they're worried about, which is possible, that they've got a title or two that for some reason is doing something crazy. I mean, we've seen that this year, this gen, where Xbox wasn't able to get one or two titles for IP reasons, which also might be what they're indicating. But he didn't say we're looking into it. He said the tech team, the actual like technical development teams are looking into it, which is a little bit, that bothers me, because I was hoping they would just be backwards compat. Like, we'd just be like, okay, we now know it's backwards compatible. New controller sounds good. Battery would be great, right? Like a better battery. I mean, and I'm not talking slightly better. I'm talking minimum 1.5, if not 2 times as long, would be sort of where I would want that controller to be. Speaker isn't surprising, because this one has the little speaker in it. Did they say anything about a touchpad like the original?
No, they did not mention that. I wouldn't mind if it was pretty similar to the PlayStation 4. Like, I hope there's a share button again. I think that was like one of the best natural integrations to a controller I think I've seen since I was a kid. You know, it felt very a part of what gaming is now. Like pressing that share button, showing a gameplay clip, showing a screenshot that you just took. I think that was really cool. So I hope they keep that.
The reason why I brought up the touchpad is that might be the compatibility issue. Because if they don't have one, then you have games that are instantly not compatible. And I should know, I bought a custom PS4 controller without a touchpad, and literally a couple days ago got a game that required the touchpad. And I was like, oh shit.
Like
I didn't even...
Gone, to get around the menu, you have to swipe the touchpad.
Yeah, and some games are offering options where you can, use other things. Sorry, my doorbell rang, so the dogs might bark. But yeah, so I mean, overall, I don't feel like we heard anything new. I feel like it's good. Like we're hearing some. I also believe that a lot of it was because Microsoft is doing their X event coming up, and that Sony wants to get in front of that too. So because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of overlap, Matty, a lot. Like it sounds like there's going to be overlap in the APU itself with Ryzen and so we're going to get a lot of hardware overlap. So I think it makes sense for Sony to just start blurting out the side stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
And a new front end, by the way, I'm all for. A new OS. I'm not a fan of that Spartan. I don't want it Xbox busy, but I don't want it as Spartan as PS4's currently.
Gotcha. So how do you feel that developers are just getting the controller now? Yeah. That put me in a little bit of a worried state. I was like, okay, if anybody's working, how do you work on a game outside of building, I guess, the world and writing the story? I mean, there's lots of things you can do in the game, but how do you start building that gameplay system or something unique when you don't know the controller you're working with? Do you think they just generally have, like, maybe PlayStation send them a design doc, like, hey, it's still gonna have the X square, triangle, and circle button. We're still gonna have our 2 triggers, our 2 bumpers, a D-pad, and 2 analog sticks, so design around that? Do you think maybe that's what they did, and anything else is a bonus, like the haptics?
No, that is what they do get, by the way, because we saw that with Xbox. Somebody released a design document when Xbox didn't know how they were going to do their GPU, and it was like, prepare for this, but it could possibly be this. And so when because remember, they're not developing on real PS4 box or PS5 boxes anyway. They're developing on like development boxes, which are usually approximations. So yeah, I would say that most likely we won't see companies take full advantage of either controller until their second gen games, or unless in the next 3 or 4 months they start. But when you look at game generation, we're also probably going to see a lot of games that are just really better looking PS4 and Xbox games, just due to the length of time AMD has taken to get the chip exactly that these two companies want. Because people don't realize, like, Watch Dogs, one of the major issues with Watch Dogs 1 and how it showed up at E3 versus what we got was because originally the console manufacturers were touting a higher GPU ability in both of the consoles than we actually got. So things were started to pare down. Not too surprising. I think the one thing I want to know, I don't know if you saw the rumor, but somebody else had posted, who is a rumor, successfully has rumored about prior stuff. He posted that both of them are also focusing heavily on streaming.
Like
which
Stadia
makes sense.
Streaming, you mean, or like PS Now?
No, like Twitch.
Oh.
They both will come with cameras. And the Xbox camera, supposedly, at least this leaker, who again has been successful, doesn't mean he is, and doesn't mean this is final, but stated that the Xbox one is particularly much more robust, which makes sense because Xbox owns Mixer. So that doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah, the Xbox side does make sense. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. That's a good point.
I think if they all come with cameras, we'll have what we got with the PS4, where some games will use the sensor and the camera, and some games will use the camera to do this or do that. Like all that. I think we're going to see a lot more streaming capable stuff, like the share button. Like you said, their share button's not going to go away, even though on the Xbox it's the same thing, but they have the big X button, because technically Xbox has 3 buttons.
I think it's like, isn't it like a combo you have to press to get like the
no,
share? Oh,
you just press the middle and it pops up and says, do you want to share?
Okay.
So it is the share button. It's just when it pops up, you can share, but you can also see the OS. That's the only real difference between the PS4 and the Xbox. So it makes sense. I think all that stuff, like, there really hasn't been a surprise, because we still don't know anything about, other than the CPU they did state is 8 cores and 16 threads. We still don't really know what that means. Depends on what they've chosen speed-wise. So technology-wise, it's a little questionable still.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to hit us with that, like, when it's a big official reveal? I think that's I'm trying to remember back to last generation, like, how late that took for that type of stuff to come out. I thought that was later in the cycle of news.
It was E3 for... because no one knew everything until E3 for the Xbox, because remember, they had the big debacle of the Kinect being installed. I would assume Microsoft, at minimum, if they don't do something at their X event, which they seem to be pushing that they'll do something, I would assume all the locked-in stuff will actually still be at E3 for them. With Sony, I don't know how they'll do it. They seem very blasé. Also, one thing to remember is Jim, what's his name? Jim Bird, the main... Jim Ryan, he's also the one that stated very clearly that he believed backwards compatibility was not usable at all, and that it was just sort of a fad. Some of the stuff between him and Shane and what they said about gaming, I'm not 100% sure I'm behind what Jim said. Just tracking what Jim said in the past has been really weird.
Right.
So I'm hoping Shane had a say in a lot of this stuff, at least at the starting, because it feels like...
You're talking about Sean Layden?
Sean, I'm sorry, yeah. It seems like... Sure. That's all right. It seems like he was just a little bit more of the typical Sony guy who's like first parties and they need to emote. You know, he was a little softer. And it seems like Jim's a little bit more like hardcore, which I'm not 100% sure that really fits with Sony, to be honest.
I don't know. I don't know why they have that approach either, especially when you're leading the race. You know, you don't get complacent or comfortable, but you go, okay, we have this position. How do we make use of this now? That's sort of why you fight to get in front. So you get put in a spot where you have the resources and the means to stay up there.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to work just as hard, which can feel a little weird. You're like, why do we got to do this? We're in front of everybody. But
it's almost like you have to work harder in a weird, or you should at least, because then the expectations are high.
You just don't have that soul, like we'll say Microsoft reasoning, where it's like, man, we really fell behind. You know, we're doing great for our own standards.
Do a bunch of shit.
But yeah, now we got to like keep pushing Sony out. So really strange. And speaking of strange, what did you think about? Because I made a whole video on this, so that's why I'm sort of like firing questions at you mostly. what do you feel about how this all was announced? Like another Wired article. It felt low energy, and obviously, as Kotaku stated, and I would agree, it was to get ahead of some leaks. But it's one of those situations where, you know, even in the PlayStation blog, they're like, this probably isn't a surprise to any of our PlayStation fans. And since that was the case, then why would they try to get ahead of leaks if they agree as well? It's not that big of a surprise. Like, I just didn't see a point in posting this article just to talk about an SSD, the drive, and the controller.
No, I agree. I don't. Other than him leaving, and maybe it was more about switching the conversation onto the hardware versus the person. Because remember, a person leaving. I mean, that caused. It wasn't handled like any other person leaving that we've seen leave a company. It was like, here's a thing. So it does. You know, we just don't know. But it is a weird article to just be like, hey, yeah, everything you already thought. That's pretty much what we're doing. Thanks. And which, like you said, is not the Sony event of the past.
Yeah, and I can understand why, based off how they had a little bit of a bumpy ride when it came to, recent events, we'll say. Like, State of Play hasn't been a big banger. Their last E3 was not good. I can understand why they're like, let's just not do the public showcase thing. But like you mentioned, it felt distinctly low and different in not a good way. But we do have a number of questions to go through from a lot of the patrons. As you guys know, we like to include you as we go along in the show. So a couple of our topics you participated in. The first one comes from Black Dow. He asks, what are your predictions for a PS5 launch title? It's a really good one. I've had one prediction for 2 years. No, year and a half.
What's that?
Sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. I genuinely think that will be a launch title. Knack 3.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be. I don't know. Do you think it'll be an actual, just because of the way the story wrapped up in Horizon Zero Dawn, do you actually think it'll be a sequel or a spiritual, sequel?
I think sequel. Direct sequel. Because they kind of did a... Well, actually, hold on. I never played Frozen Wild, so I don't know if that picks up where the main story ends.
It's a side story.
It's a side story? Then I definitely think it'll be a direct sequel.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't heard anything about that game, and those guys have still been releasing updates for Horizon Zero Dawn.
They have?
Yeah, little updates like patches and stuff. I don't mean like huge DLC by any means or anything like that. But yeah, I guess it could be. I never really thought of that game as being a release title as much as maybe a 1 year out title to make people continue to like a system, if that makes sense.
I get you. Kind of like what they did with Mario Odyssey. Yeah,
but I would be all for that. And I mean, timing's pretty right when you look at like time frame that they could do it. It does seem short though. It just seems short again because I think we're just finding out some data about the system.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be.
What's another title?
Could be Ghosts of Tsushima. We haven't heard anything about that. Since
they could do here's the PS4 version, and then boom, here's the PS. You thought the PS4 version looked cool. Well, look at this. That would work. It depends though, because those titles aren't guaranteed success. They are graphically help some, but they do need good gameplay, as you stated with like Sekiro. You weren't a big fan of the gameplay as much, and just because it looks good doesn't mean quite quickly it's going to be panned if like the mechanisms aren't right. So
it'll be interesting if that ends up happening, because that'll be Sucker Punch launching one game in the PS4 gen. Let's say they do actually end up becoming a PS5 launch title. Right,
that's true though.
They would have only gotten, if you want to count Last Light, the little spin-off arcade game, I guess, sure, they launched too. But if they actually push it back to the PS5, it took them a whole generation just to get Ghost of Tsushima out the door.
It's true, yeah.
And that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that is a good point. It's definitely taken them a long friggin' time.
That's why they should just make Sly Cooper. It ain't complicated. It's a very, very obvious choice. Very easy idea. Brown Ninja 97 asks, one of the main advertisements of the PlayStation 5 thus far is the dramatically increased storage speed. I expect it in some form of a, I apologize if I say this in a newbie way, PCIe SSD. Was there like a word there I should have used, or?
Nope, that's
Okay, just
one
the letters.
of the types of memory. Yeah.
Okay. My question is, how do you think games will adapt to best utilize that speed? I'd expect LED distance, texture resolution, and loading times to drastically improve. But is there anything else?
Well, LED, what?
LOD.
Oh, LOD?
Yeah.
Well, LOD only improves if your GPU and CPU cycle improve. And that they're not really, like, the problem with storage is people keep thinking it's going to, for example, the Spider-Man demo. They were like, look at how fast this loads. Correct. It does. It for sure does load faster. But there's other things holding it back, which is the fact that if your GPU can't draw it, it doesn't matter how fucking fast it can load. Mm-hmm. Your GPU actually has to deliver that LOD and has to deliver the detail in between.
Well, didn't they like do a city fly through? Does that change anything?
No,
okay.
No, it's literally just, it does for that game. It'll say, hey, look at this. We can load this. That all that kind of stuff all hinges on the lowest common denominator. And the lowest common denominator, if you put faster storage speed, super fast burst storage speed and a good GPU, then it's your CPU that you have to worry about. Right. If it's not your CPU, you have to worry about your GPU. So everything has to be metered out. Additionally, we have seen games that don't require streaming, that run off SSDs, that don't see huge improvements versus HDDs. And some people are saying, oh, this will mean that every game on a PS4 will do it a certain way. And the first thing you have to say is absolutely not. Because if it's a third-party title, the third-party company is not going to say, let's ignore PCs, which have both HDD and SDD. Additionally, if they do change all this, you will not be able to use HDD as external storage because you won't be able to play a game from it because it will have vastly different performance. The cooler you make something sound, the more sense you have to make of everything around it. And what they're trying to do is be like, look at this magical thing we have. What they're not telling you is if you want external storage, you're most likely buying it from Sony and Microsoft, and it's going to be as expensive as fuck.
Just like the old PS Vita memory card.
Also, remember, USB-C even isn't fast enough to catch up with, like, NMV memory. So what he's talking about is an SSD in your system. He's talking about 580 megabytes. A normal hard drive's 120. So it's 4 times faster. That makes sense.
Interesting.
NMV is 3,000. And that's what Sony's been hinting about. NMV also is quite literally considered the hottest component you can put in a PC. We're talking 90 to 101 Celsius for an NMV.
See, when you said hot, I thought you were meant I thought you were giving me a little sizzle word there. You actually meant this is a hot object.
No, I mean it's literally so hot that Linus Text Tips has done entire videos on just trying to get it cool to the point to where it doesn't bake everything else on a hard drive.
Wow.
Also, you're talking about little consoles. You're not talking about a PC case, so it's even worse.
Mm-hmm.
So if you already have issues with cooling on a PS4 and it getting super loud when it's cooling, if you try to throw an NVMe, which is sort of what they're hinting about, then you're talking about insane heat. If you're talking about an SSD, then the switch in speed is not nearly as dramatic. One is 4 times faster. The other is like fucking more than 15 times faster. And also throttles dramatically under heat. NVMe goes from super fast to insanely slow if it heats up. So your cooling system in your console would have to be incredible to make sure it never raised above a certain heat. Yeah, so you have all these other things. And again, then if you get that all fixed, external storage gone, because USB-C cannot write at that speed. Which indicates to me, did you see the hint where they're like, you can install stuff at like single player versus...
Yes.
You know why?
Okay.
Because if they do use external storage, you will actually be installing from the external storage, not playing from the external storage. So that will actually most likely have some kind of system that switches them. Because if you have to read their tweets and get past their bullshit. By the way, if they've magically fixed all this, Sony would be the #1 tech company in the world and they would buy everybody. Because these are issues that exist far past Sony. These are issues that every company has had for years.
So they're kind of decorating what is common problems in a different light. Yeah, they're trying to sell you something.
Sony. Yeah, they're trying to sell, and Sony's always done this. Remember, Sony was the one who tried to tell us the PS2 was so amazing it couldn't be shipped to Iraq because they'd put it on missiles and launch it. 2 things were wrong with that. 1, they're full of bullshit, and 2, it wasn't even the same kind of processor. It was ridiculously blown out of proportion. The cell processor, they would tell you that the entire PS3 was so fast because of the cells. What they didn't tell you is the cells were insanely low storage, like 156 kilobyte or some insanely small. They could do something really fast, but barely anything with it. Like there wasn't a lot of data in there.
Yeah.
Sony is really into that. And that's why I always warn people, you gotta watch what they're saying, because purchase-wise, it could change everything. I don't know if a person wants to get rid of their 7 gigabyte hard drive, that they want external storage, use it for external storage. Additionally, Call of Duty, the install speed or the install size. Did you see the big hubbub about that? The new Call of Duty's install size is like upwards of 150 gigs.
Yeah.
So
I actually saw a VR game I was really interested in had 100 gigabyte.
Asgard's Wrath.
Yep.
Yep.
Look at this guy. Plugged
in.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I just played it. It's amazing.
Dude,
but no,
I want to get us off topic, but I'm looking to buy a VR just for that game. It looks,
dude, it's amazing.
It looks so cool.
It is one of the first ever third party, whatever VR titles. If you get it's not Fallout VR, which was a port.
It's like an actual game.
Yep.
If you will.
But yeah, anyway, so tech, I'm excited for all this. We're going to see huge dramatic improvements, but you can't see any of those without looking at either a consumer, additional weight on the consumer for purchasing. For example, Xbox used to sell their own hard drives. And I don't know if anybody remembers, it was like $400 for an external hard drive. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there's all these other little things that come up, heat being one of them.
See, now I just want to say this before we talk any further about the PlayStation 5. Ladies and gentlemen, if there was ever any question, which there isn't, but if there ever was, on why Karak is a co-host, that little spiel
I'm
there.
A nerd?
That little spiel there. Look, I can give you guys some business talk. I can talk games all day. When it comes to tech, I'm lost. And this man right here just fucking... I feel like I know everything about the PS5 now.
I am more nerdy than Matty will ever become.
That's why I got your little tweet when I posted the fucking arcade cabinet. I was like, "What have I done?" You're like, "You're now a nerd." Well,
yeah, exactly. You've come into the group, my friend. Sit down, put on your nerd cap, and let's go. Yeah, well, I mean, it's cool too because everybody's really excited, which is going to be great. I just want people to be contained excitement because I've lived through Sony. Well, you have two now, PS3 and then PS2, right?
Yeah, I've been around.
Right, not PS1.
I was gonna say the only one I didn't get it on was
but I
PS1.
mean, we've lived through this layer.
My first genuine exposure to a console generation launch was the PS4 and Xbox One. In all actuality, I was there for the 360 and PS3. But I didn't care because I didn't want to spend that money on the games and the console. I remember I said it I just said this also in yesterday's video. I didn't buy Xbox 360 till like right at the end of 2008, like beginning of 2009. I was playing my PS2 up until then. Yeah, I was like a very late adopter because I didn't want to spend the money on a system. I was enjoying games like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy. You have it. I was a very big, like, nostalgic based gamer, I guess, if anything. Even when my brother got his Xbox 360, because he got it on launch. I remember going to Best Buy with him. And I remember playing Top Spin and Halo. And it wasn't until I think like Call of Duty World at War came out and I heard about Mass Effect from BioWare. That's when I got a 360. So yeah, I was a really late adopter to that type of stuff. So I really...
He was also... Oh, good.
No, I was just going to say, I really have not seen... I could have seen the 360 and PS3 launch from, like, a investigative standpoint, but I just didn't care, and I was too young. I was like... how old was I at the time, man? 2006, I think it was, so 13 years ago. Yeah, I was a youngling. I was, like, 10, 11.
He was also asking, like, what improvements we could see. If you take all that into account and you multiply the power and stuff, I think we'll certainly see the same games repeated. Don't magically think we're not going to see Call of Duty just now on a console that looks better. I mean, that's another thing. But the side games, Sony will take advantage. Microsoft will take advantage of their tech. Like, what else would we see? We see resolution crop up. You'll see... see, that's the thing is, there's still a game-playing machine, and then you get the same genres repeated. Like, that's one of the things I'm worried about is somebody thinks it's going to change a genre, and I don't think we've seen a genre change.
Yeah, that's the thing is What happened in this generation leap, from what I've noted, was everything that couldn't be open worlds became open.
Very good point.
And so I view it as, okay, what's the
Bigger,
next? Yeah,
maybe, now?
I think it just gets. I think now it'll get to a point where, and it's not like the developer didn't have a choice now, but I think the more sensible upgrade was always size, give it a bigger world. But now it's like, do we go back to our more classical choice? Whether you're like, let's say we were originally a 2D platformer, we went into a 3D platformer. Now we're more open up. Do we now go back to 2D and dedicate all of our power on this console to really nice graphics, really cool art style? I'm thinking like Ori, we'll say. Do we take that, add more tools in, and develop it all on a 2D plane? I think it now will go back to more of the artistic choice, because there will be more power to choose between where you want to go, because the ceiling only goes so high, right? We'll see those first set of games, and we'll keep seeing the bar getting pushed. And eventually there will be that game that's sort of a Witcher 3, what other games are out there? God of War, that sort of caps out the system's power, where you can see, like, it's very beautiful graphically, it's very open, there's complex gameplay systems, there's just a lot happening on screen, it runs well. So eventually we'll hit that point, and I think once we do that, you're going to start to see reverts back to old genres in unique ways. Like, I think because we're going to have more power on these systems naturally, I think you can see something like a stealth genre looking how it does in a modern sense graphically, but having maybe the gameplay choice and freedom that people talk about with the old Thief games and stuff, really, really diverse choices and replayability there that just can't be there now, I feel.
I think that's
a good art style to supplement it. Something like that.
I think also when we put it together, there's a chance, like you brought up probably the best point, was the main thing we saw was every game that was 2D go 3D and open world. Like we did, like every one of us was tired of hearing this new game is open world, and you're just like, okay, seriously? Mm-hmm. But I do get what you mean, and I could see better tracking of AI lives, so that when you go around a corner, for example, GTA 6 is great, or 5, but when you go around a corner, a car behind you will disappear if you turn back around, because it's taking it out of memory. Mm-hmm. So I can certainly see, like, persistent vehicles, if it makes sense. That also helped them, because a traffic jam could be cleared up if you were over here and they didn't have to worry about making it look real. But I also think loading screens will be hidden better. They'll still be there, because you have to load a game. Even God of War loaded, it just streamed, and then we had the one where they pretended you weren't loading, but you walked into the big glowing thing, and that was actually loading. I can see cuts, or like those loading screens, like Bethesda games, open a door, and you see a fucking thing floating, you play with it. That'll probably, those will probably be gone, or in some way it'll do a thing where it figures out where you may go. That's the big thing now, that when I was talking to a developer, he was saying the big thing now is guessing where a player may go. So if a player fast travels, they may load. But if a player goes into a building, they already think you might go in, so they'll preload, and this could certainly happen on the new consoles. Well, they'll preload the building because you're in the room and you're within 100 feet of it. They'll preload that, and that way if you go in that room, there is no load screen. Mm-hmm. All that kind of stuff. Even Bethesda, who has an older architecture, I could see many companies doing that.
And then you have to account, let's say we'll keep on the Skyrim theme, you have to account if while they're loading that in, a dragon flies in at the same time. Like, how does the game perform then? And that's how you test.
Yeah, that's why you have people do crazy shit in your games.
Yes. Aunt Jemima asked, how do you think the next generation of consoles will differentiate themselves? At this point, they seem to be going in very similar directions in terms of hardware, at least. I've been saying for a really long time that I feel the biggest differentiation you're going to see over time is the games. It's just going to be like, what do you want to play? And eventually you're going to start to see that blur, like we're already seeing with Microsoft and Nintendo. Because these companies are starting to just say, let's drop the pride, let's drop the console war stuff, let's see how many games we can get into people's hands. Now, it's a little different in the case of Microsoft, because like Gears of War 5 had a lot of players because of Game Pass, but it didn't sell well. So Microsoft benefits more from getting it on more platforms. So I think you'll start to see Microsoft blur that line a little bit, where it just doesn't matter what console you own. You're just going to buy the game. But it's also, you're going to see a more servicey direction, like we saw PlayStation knocked down the PS Now prices. I think that type of stuff is important to overall keep in mind. I think the differentiation will also be in the terms of little things like the PlayStation controller had the share button, and I think Xbox had the ability to share, but it was like in a much more inconvenient manner until they patched it. UI was a big issue with the Xbox at launch. It wasn't just the Kinect
UI definitely
was. The TV. Yeah, like the menu when you open up the Xbox console itself was just not good at all. It was very confusing. Where PlayStation had a very simple crossbar. So those differentiations we're really not going to know until we have the system in hand or we get a preview of it, that kind of thing. Because that just goes into, because I'm sure I would imagine there has to be some level of communication between these two to know where they're setting the bar, right? Would that be or do they just both make their own systems and then out they go? Like I feel like, so the developers have to be on the same page as well with these two console makers.
Yeah, I mean, and then also you have to figure that so there's a book about the making of the Xbox 360, and when they talk about it, they talk about how like multiple different manufacturers or multiple different platforms will use the same manufacturer, and sometimes they'll be in the same building, and they have to sort of hide what they're doing. But in the end, you only have a certain amount of tech. And so what happens is Sony and Microsoft go to AMD. They've both chosen to go with AMD, and they say, our delta is $400. Or sorry, not our delta, our aim is $400. So what AMD will say is, here's what 400 can get you. And then Microsoft and Sony adjust things. Sony adjusted the CU, which is the computational units. Microsoft added an older type of RAM so they could fit the Kinect in. So that's the difference between the PS4 and the Xbox. Overall is the slower RAM on the Xbox. So, yeah, they do have communication, but it's not like me. It's almost like my friend saying to you, are you mad at Karak? And then me asking you, is that person mad at me? And you filtering the data to both of us to make us get along.
Okay. So there's a middleman, I guess.
There's a middleman, yeah, but the technology and the price is the big middleman. Unless Sony or Microsoft says $600. If Sony or Microsoft adds 200 or removes 200, then you'll get Tegra for the Switch. At minus 200.
So so that's okay. Yeah, and that was actually kind of foolish of me to say now, because I remember how the PS5 was like absurd, or PS3 was absurdly priced, and the 360 was in a good area. So
that's because there was a different price point they aimed, and they went to different companies. Now they're not. Now everybody's AMD, and everybody can look at AMD and go, I can tell you for $200 exactly what I'm going to get at the base level, and then the companies go in and say, tweak it here, overclock it here. So, yeah, there's communication in that part. I think overall, though, like that's why we see that there's not huge differences anymore, because they're going to the same manufacturer. It's very hard. It's almost like me and you buying a car. If I get the premium version or the V6 versus maybe your V4, but the V4 is turbo, you might have a car that almost goes about the same speed, but one's faster off the line, but in the end, is slower at the top end. So there's a lot of overlap.
Let me ask you a question that maybe some people are wondering. I'll ask for myself, though, too. Why just AMD? Like, why is there no NVIDIA, for example?
Because the reason why we don't have the original Xbox anymore, and the reason why Microsoft moved on, is because NVIDIA fucked them beyond belief. So bad that other platform holders even looked at it and were like, we'll never work with NVIDIA. And Microsoft stated it openly, that we will not work with NVIDIA again. NVIDIA fucked them over by not selling them the rights to the chip that was in the Xbox original, and they raised their licensing. So you pay a license to say NVIDIA's in our system, let's say it's $1. They were pricing it so high that Microsoft literally was losing money per Xbox original. They weren't allowed to shrink it the way they wanted. Usually you're able to buy the license and say, okay, now like that's ours, we can adjust things. And they weren't able to. And NVIDIA is just known for that in the hardware, in the hardware world, is just known for all kinds of issues. Yeah, and Microsoft, and especially Phil Spencer's been there for 30 years. So I bet you that even if somebody else said, let's use NVIDIA, most likely everybody said no. Also, remember, NVIDIA doesn't make an APU. AMD does. So NVIDIA only makes GPUs. AMD makes a CPU/GPU, which is what we get in these consoles. That's why you don't have a big graphics card you plug in. It's on the chip. NVIDIA doesn't do that. NVIDIA's main source is just video cards.
Gotcha.
And AMD does both.
Gotcha.
So that's why
that makes sense. Okay. All right, that's all the questions we have for the PlayStation 5, myself and the patrons included.
Oh, what do you think it'll be? What do you think it'll cost? I'm guessing it'll be $499 again. Yeah.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Yeah, $500. I think.
Is there any magic special thing you expect? Like, don't worry if you think it's unrealistic, but is there some?
I'm trying to just think as innocently as possible here and just go up with my craziest dreams. See, that's the thing. I struggle to think of what I would really want because all I care about is the games, and I've really enjoyed the games this generation.
Me
some
too.
really good ones. So I'm just sitting here thinking, like, man, what? Because for me, at the end of the day, does a new console define that, or is it the vision of the developer? Because Astral Chain, for example, is on a very not powerful console, but it is one of my favorite games in the last couple of years. I fucking love that game. So does power really matter? And if so, what would I do with that extensive power? I guess, I think like when I'm on PS4, an option I'd really like is, share play is a thing so I can stream my game to a friend. So if my friend's thinking about buying a game or what I'm doing right now, which we'll get into a little bit later on, is I'm playing Catherine Full Body and I'll share play with my friend and we'll just go through the game together. So it's kind of like couch co-op, but from a distance. I'd just like to include more people in share play. That kind of thing. Like instead of like when I'm in a PS4 party streaming to one friend, I can stream to like 3 of them and we can all just play together. That way. I think that's always kind of fun. You can pass the controller to whoever. That's a cool feature with share play. So I'd like to see expansion on that, but I can't really think of anything like substantial because right now I like what the PS4, for example, is doing. The UI is clean. I'd like to see, if anything, and this has nothing to do with the console, the fucking servers for PlayStation to improve. They're terrible.
True.
They're terrible.
Okay, so is streaming from the console important to you? As in, what if Sony and Microsoft, or Sony, whichever you want to talk about, made a front end, so instead of using OBS to do your front end and your graphics, you were able to somehow, using a mouse and keyboard maybe, or an online service, be able to make your own overlay and just stream from your console with good sound. Maybe they fix that. Is that even on your list of give a fucks?
Yeah, I think it would be cool if like they had like an actual Twitch integration,
right?
That had, because here's the thing: is, for example, you can stream from the PS4, but if you do with the PlayStation camera and everything, it's like this whole right side is taken up with the text, and then there's like a small block for you, and then the game's very shrunken down. It looks really weird. I would like it, if they had a full-on Twitch integration that allowed you to use mouse and keyboard to set things up. You didn't lose like your graphics, your alerts, and any of that stuff. It was just like a full-on dedicated integration. That would be really cool because then you wouldn't need these external programs, which I appreciate what they do, but it's just a lot of managing and shit. That makes streaming, for me at least, I haven't streamed in a while just because I'm busy with my secret project and YouTube's been a whole full-time gig. So between that, the Patreon, and what I'm pushing now, it's been like a pretty busy time for me. But when I have time to stream, I'm just like, it's just such a fucking exhausting process to like set up all the programs, make sure everything's good to go. I just love to have that ability to change the title, change the game, click live, go.
Yeah.
So if that was all integrated onto one console, that'd be cool. I'd be for that. All right. Next news section should be a quick one. It is IO Interactive teaming up with Warner Brothers for a new game. Now, Karak, I saw you actually send out a specific tweet about this. What do you think of the news?
I just think so. I'm not a huge fan of Warner Brothers. I'll admit, behind the scenes, I've dealt with them a couple times. However, I feel that they were getting the short end of the stick on Hitman 2, not only in like ads, but in money. They had a bunch of money issues. They had all these problems. I don't remember the last time, this is just me being honest, I could be wrong. I don't remember the last time somebody bitched about a Warner Brothers game not getting money to be made. I really don't. I don't remember any company that I've dealt with that's got a Warner Brothers published title or whatever ever discussing money being an issue. And I would like to see a Hitman 3 where money wasn't an issue and a big company. Warner Brothers is big. a big company supporting it. So to me, it's a positive and a negative. Negative just because I'm not a huge fan of Warner Brothers, but a positive because I do want IO to succeed. And I feel like that is actually a pretty good fit. I also feel like Warner Brothers doesn't publish a bunch of shit and that they would love to focus on a title on the off years.
Okay.
And they haven't been able to do that. And a Hitman title is a pretty big title if you PR it right. And they could be like, yeah, you don't have a Batman, but guess what you do have? You have Hitman 3 with all the money that they deserve to create their title. I mean, dude, Hitman 2 didn't even have cutscenes. It had fucking pastel like paper for graphics.
Right.
So the rest of the graphics looked amazing, and the cutscenes were like, it looks like it's from a fucking Genesis game. So, it's a
Did
give
you
and
like
take.
Hitman 2?
I did, yeah. Hitman 2 gave so much bang for its buck as well, because you could go back and play all the Hitmans, or all Hitman 1 with the weapons from Hitman 2. So any of the weapons that were new for Hitman 2 were now in Hitman 1, and all their episodic.
Wow.
It was it was
Hitman 2
almost like...
included all of Hitman 1?
Yeah, and you could go back,
Wow.
and so there were new weapons. It would almost be like playing KOTOR 2, and if there was a new class, that class is suddenly available in KOTOR 1. And KOTOR 1 looks better because it's been remastered or whatever. Yeah, it was... Dude, Hitman 2 offered... and remember, even though I liked episodic, I'll admit, Hitman 2 was not episodic, which meant you bought it, you got everything, as well as those missions. And they just released a huge open world mission 2 weeks ago for that game.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the games must be doing decent, right? Like, they have to be if...
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I've worried about that because I haven't seen it on any... I didn't, even the year or the month it came out, I didn't see it sell well. It reminds me of Control, where you thought it might be doing well. And and then you look at those numbers and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm stoked for them from a purely they'll probably be able to do what they want standpoint.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, I don't really have a ton of additional commentary on it just because...
Oh, I wanted to ask you, doesn't it also say that it's a different IP too? So it won't even be Hitman 3 first. I think they stated it'll be a new IP.
I would bring it up on my computer right now. Obviously, I can't, but I believe
it is new IP.
Yeah, because actually one of our only Patreon question for this section was, what do you think of the state of Hitman 3? Is that this new game that or a new IP? This comes from 2R3M. So if it is a new IP, then I don't believe it would be Hitman 3. Not believe it factually would not be.
Right.
Interesting. Did they actually say that?
They did actually. Yeah, I just looked at my discussion I had with another person, and we were talking about it, and it definitely stated. It says we're excited to work with a brand new IP. I got a PR from them that also said it.
Wow. Okay. No,
and I don't think
good.
they're big enough to work on.
Do you think? No, never mind. I was gonna say, do you think they have any involvement in that Harry Potter game? Because we still have no idea where that is.
But we still have no idea what that is. Yeah, but that would be hilarious if IO is working on that, because they've never done anything like that. That'd be so awesome. The Hitman makers are now making Harry Potter.
Yeah, oh my God, fucking Harry Potter going around breaking broomsticks over McGonagall's head or something like that.
Do you think that's done? Do you think that game? I haven't heard even a rumor or a fucking pseudo leak about that Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's a really, really weird situation. And maybe it's because we live in a universe with Ubisoft where the second something leaks, they go, fuck it, reveal it. But,
yeah,
like, it seems like the adverse effect happened. They're like, nope, now we're locking that shit down, you're getting nothing. Like, it's really weird. I don't know why they... It could have, there is a really good possibility. A lot of people don't realize how many games get canceled, but...
Oh, yeah.
You know, this could have been a old canceled game trailer because there were parts of the game that, like, face model-wise, we'll say, like, looked very
rough.
Off. Yeah.
Yep.
For a trailer. It looked like an older game. It looked great, but it looked like an older game in a lot of ways. And that wouldn't surprise me if we eventually found out, hey, this is actually a canceled game. But, you know, then Eurogamer came out with, like, reports saying that, yeah, it's something that's being worked on. It is real. It is coming. And maybe those leaks just scared this developer, and now they don't know what to do because they had all the hype there, and now they feel like it's gone. I don't know. Really strange.
Could Could have also been something where maybe it was a demo reel, where a company is working, but they're like, create a milestone where you're like, what's your overall idea of what this would look like?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, okay, here's a fake demo because it's
Gotcha.
not, and maybe that's what it was because it just disappeared, man. It's so weird.
Well, we'll see in due time. Any additional thoughts on this?
I want it. Oh, sorry, no, I was Harry Potter.
Yeah, I want Harry Potter too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely interested in IO.
Yeah, I don't share as much interest, but personally, I'm happy to see them sticking around making games. Very good. All right, now we go to the section where we talk about what we're playing, and that's, like I said, because it's a slow-ish news week in the terms of number of things to discuss. So we thought we'd get you involved in the conversation here from you guys on what you're playing as well. So we'll just start off by reading what you guys are tinkering around with here. Let me open up my Discord on my phone, and we'll read some of the entries. This is a very patron-focused episode. A lot of interaction here. I think I was an idiot and completely closed the app. I did. All right, here we go. So we have Empty and Made, who is playing through Banner Saga 1 through 3 this week and loved the fuck out of it.
Yeah.
I've only played the first Banner Saga. Really liked it, but I have yet to get into 2 or 3 yet, which I've heard are better and better each time.
Yep.
Blade 98 is just trying to get through Greedfall with the very limited amount of free time that he has, which is understandable because they definitely undersold the length of that game. Definitely a 45-hour one. Sorry, I had to have a little drink there. Brown Ninja says, on a side note, I'm playing FIFA 20 and I hate it. Worst game of the year, not because of the pay-to-win mechanics or the bugs, not even due to the loss of licenses, but because my 7-year-old cousin keeps beating me. This is unacceptable, and I blame EA. Brown Ninja, you should retire and move on to other games.
Yeah, it's time. Put on your old man socks. You're done.
Yep. Once the little kid starts beating you, you start to see your reaction time slowing down. We all get there, and we all go, man, I remember the days where I was an MLG gamer. Kettle Corn says, I've been playing Greedfall per your guys' recommendation. I must say I'm pretty blown away. You can obviously tell the game was developed on a budget, but I can't really say... Oh, I misread that. But I really can't see that they got anything wrong that couldn't be fixed by spiders getting an influx of cash. The storytelling is great, and the music is awesome. I see a bright future for spiders, and I can't wait to see what they come out with next. Thanks for the great recommendation. I don't know if I ever would have picked it up if it weren't for you guys. It's our pleasure. We love seeing a lot of Greedfall love in the Patron questions.
It's insanity, Matty. Even my video for Greedfall did way better than it had any right to do.
Mm-hmm. Same. A lot of people were because that's the thing is I think those videos did well because a lot of people saw it look good and were like, wait, what is this? Great game. Really good game. For those who are wondering, there are, I think, 4 or 5. I don't know if that's the exact number. It's in that range, though. 4 or 5 endings. So everyone's going to have a bit of a different experience going into it for the most part. Let's see. What else is everybody playing? Mike Fury is playing and reviewing New Vegas before The Outer Worlds comes out. Going through it just makes me appreciate Obsidian even more, and the fact that they only took 18 months to accomplish this, and then you look at Bethesda and they took 2 to 3 years and we got Fallout 76. I don't know. I think it's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I always say, though, because people always bring up Obsidian being God tier because they made that game in 18 months, but they did say, like, hey... that's all we really needed for the game that we had in mind. So they weren't getting overly ambitious in the terms of like expanding Fallout. They were just making another good ass Fallout game. But those are all the submissions for what people are playing. Karak, what are you playing, my friend?
Disco Elysium, baby.
All right, let's hear about this weird ass game.
Craziest game I've played in at least a decade, if not 2. So I'm trying to think. Did you ever do Pillars or Tyranny or Baldur's Gate? You did Divinity.
Yes.
Original Sin.
Yes.
Okay. So you're a amnesiac, drunk, druggy cop, and what we're playing is a game that's about 70 hours long, from what I understand, and
wow.
It's based on a D&D world these guys made for 2 decades, a decade or 2.
I think I know this game, but keep going. Sorry.
So it's got so much lore in it that currently you're talking around 1 million to 1,100,000 lines of dialogue. It's huge. It's massive. And it's lore thick as fuck, but it's got some of the coolest skill systems you'll ever see. So for example, every one of your stats Yeah, okay.
This
So
game
every
looked
one of your
fucking
stats,
awesome. It came out of nowhere too. Yep. Sorry, go on.
yeah. So no, that's all right. So every one of your stats is like strength, the typical strength and and intelligence stuff. But every one has a skill, and I think there's 5 per ability. But the skills, first of all, this is when you start to realize right away something's weird. None of the skills are the normal named skills you would ever expect. There isn't a stealth skill or a lie skill. There's something called like drama. And if you put your drama it actually warns you. If you put your drama too high, as in put too many stats in it, you'll walk into every event and be like, "Sup, my name's Karak, bitches," and people will dislike you. But if you don't have a high drama, then when you go into events, sometimes you can't burst your way through a discussion by like maybe shocking them or like pretending to punch them or whatever. So, and every skill is like this, but none of them are named normal things. So for example, Half-Light is a skill that's based on your physical prowess, but it's like your internal ability to sort of understand where you are in a situation by looking at somebody. So it's these really obscure skills, but dude, I died because I read a book. I died because my casework killed me. I died from a guy smashing my hand. I died by drowning in my own vomit.
Or is this just like the ridiculousness of a D&D type game?
It's the ridiculousness, but it's the fact that the skills are used in such a unique way. So, for example, it's very dark. You start the game in the underworld, and you have your angel and demon on your shoulders like a Warner Brothers cartoon. But they're really not, because they're both really demons, if you think about it. So they're talking to you, and they actively talk verbally. And like one will be all, "Stay here, don't go out into the meat sack world. There's just evil people there." And then you'll have this other voice that'll be like, "No, you should go out." And you have to, while you're starting, you actually have to pick and listen to these conversations and then decide, do you want to start the game?
Is it all
you
voiced?
actually want to, most of it.
Wow.
And so finally, when you start the game, you literally wake up, ass in the air, whitey-tighty, stained from multiple days of pissing yourself, beer cans around you, and you're upside down, the entire room's trashed. And you have amnesia, and you're a cop. You've lost your badge and your gun, and you have to solve a crime, which is a killing that's happened nearby. And a partner shows up, who's another character in the game, with their own set of skills, but you can't take over them. They're like a muse. They help you and all this stuff.
Okay.
But every skill and every interaction is so deep and so beyond even Divinity Original Sin, it would blow your mind. Like,
is this on the Switch?
No. Same question I asked today. Yeah, just PC.
Sounds perfect for the Switch. That's why I asked.
Dude, this one conversation, I finally, after dying a couple times because I made dumb decisions, I finally make a character I'm pretty happy with, crazy-ass skills, and I get my dossier of past murders and crimes I've solved. And there's these holes on the side, and you ask your partner, you're like, "What are these holes?" And they're like, "Well, depending on where they are on your dossier, it's certain things. How many crimes have you successfully done? How many how many people have you killed in the line of duty?" So I'm reading this, and I start to get depressed. My character's like depression skill starts going up because I'm reading it. Yeah, and I start going like, "Man, I'm a shitty person. I've killed 3 people. What the fuck? I suck." And then the demons come in, and they're like, "You do suck. Kill yourself." Wow. And the other demon's like, "Don't kill yourself. This is just your past." And then you'll look at another part of the dossier, and you'll be like, "I didn't figure this murder out, but the answer's right there." And the demon will be like, "Exactly, dude. You fucking suck." And you're slowly losing points. And you see them pop up. They'll be like, you're gaining points in like killing yourself. You're losing points in self-motivation, and there's skill names for all this. And look, no lie, I'm reading this shit, and I get to a point to where I look at my skills, and I'm like, I'm fucked. I can't continue to fail, because all you have is strength and morale as your 2 attributes. My morale was at 1 more, and I die in some way. And strength goes down, you die too. So I fucking fail this skill. I probably should have succeeded, as in I rolled poorly, because you roll stats. So every skill has 1 to 6, and you roll a 12-sided dice. You add your 6 to it, or your skill point to it, and you try to beat whatever the number is. And it'll show you on the screen what skill you're doing. And I literally failed this last one, and it's like, that's it. I'm just offing myself. This is over. Wow. And you hear a gunshot, and a newspaper clipping comes up. There's like, depressed cop commits suicide because he can't figure out like how he can't figure out a murder or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I got to start again. Wow. This kind of stuff
like permadeath,
happens.
or you like?
So you can save.
Okay.
I fucked up. It's a long game. It's 70 hours. I fucked up and I didn't quick save. And I warn people in my podcast as well, please, by all means, learn the quick save button. Because if you don't, you can die without really, not instantly.
Is it PC only?
It is. It is. But it's the thickest narrative ever. Ever. It's beyond anything Chris Avalon's even dreamed of writing. And I mean that. I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying it's thicker. Because there's multiple races, multiple political intrigues, multiple groups, multiple lands, multiple thought processes for things. So those are the skills. Then you have a thing called the thought box. Anytime somebody says something that's above your ability to understand, you can add it to your thought box. And when you successfully think about it over a period of time, you get skills for succeeding in it. But they also hurt you sometimes. So I have one called Feminist Agenda because I randomly lied to a guy about in a discussion. I'm like, you know why I don't like you? Because this girl doesn't like you as well. And then it's like Feminist Agenda. And I was like, what? I'll choose that. So I add it to my thought box. And a couple hours later, it's like, you realize prior to getting amnesia, you were a militant feminist. So we're going to give you a +2 to empathy when dealing with women. But we're going to give you a -1 to this other skill because of this.
Crazy, dude.
Dude, it's nuts. And by the way, if people freak about Feminist Agenda because of politics, first I want to say they take the piss out of every political stance you could ever think of.
Yeah, sounds it.
Everyone. It's not about that. That name stuck in my head is funny because I love when people go after other people. And they're not going after a person. They're going after other people's politics. Any politics.
I mean, if they're not playing favorites, they're going after everyone. Who gives a fuck?
No, but I will warn people, don't play it in front of your kids. It is R-rated. It is very cussy, and they will say words that in our current world are not acceptable to say out loud. They'll usually asterisk them, and sometimes you'll read it and it won't be said, but other times, like, they drop C-U-N-T all the time.
Wow.
Verbally. So if you're, like, around kids, you meet this 13-year-old who's high on amphetamines, and you're trying to get him to get a body down out of a tree for you. And that discussion is one of the rankest discussions. And it's a 13-year-old. It's a typical 13-year-old trying to pretend he's cooler than the adult. It is so well written, Matty. Like, I was just reading this, trying to talk this kid down. Pretty soon the kid is yelling to the neighbors that I was trying to fucking pedophilia him, like fondle him. Then his friend comes over, and his friend's yelling, going, "This guy's trying to rape my friend. He's going to try to put it in your butt."
Oh my fucking gosh.
Yeah. And this 13-year-old escalates it, so I'm trying to back away. My cop buddy is like, "Dude, let's go." And I don't back away from anything like an idiot. I'm like, I'm not going to leave the conversation. I just want to get it back onto the police force issue. And I keep trying, and it just escalates. It just skyrockets until finally people are like coming out of houses, and they're all, "What the fuck are you trying to do?" And I ended up dying. I ended up basically saying, like, my career was ruined because this kid accused me of doing this, and I ended up killing myself. It's
wow. So is that always like the end route, or is there actually like branching paths where like
tons of branching paths?
Okay,
tons, multiple ones. Because I got through it the next time.
Yeah, I was just making sure because you said like both times like your end result was like my character shot himself or something like that.
No, I would say no. You can lose for sure. You can be pulled off the force. You can be. There's multiple ways to lose.
Okay.
I've been shot. I had a guy break my arm and then cause me to have a heart attack and died.
Oh my gosh.
It is not Dark Souls hard or anything. It's just I am egotistical when I gameplay, and I think I can force through it despite my skills, and I can't. So I kept going, fuck you, I know my stat isn't high. I'm getting through this, because maybe I'll roll good rolls, and I didn't.
Yeah.
I rolled shit rolls multiple times, and those continue to hurt you. So each time you roll a shit roll, you sort of get into, and you can come back out. It's just I didn't.
It's so funny.
Dude,
how much is this game?
It's $39.
Okay.
Well worth it, at least so far. I haven't beat it yet, but the amount of time I've spent, I'm about 10 hours in. I feel like I've seen a tenth of it, and the amount of dialogue and replayability is beyond belief. One last thing I'll say, one of the coolest parts, there's a set of footprints. Depending on your skill, you can either guess every footprint in its size if you have a high analytics skill, and you can guess footprints and use it later. You can skip it and have your partner do it. You can actually ask the kid about it. Not only that, every piece of equipment adds points to skills. So if you put on a pair of glasses, they'll add to drama. So the next time you come into a room with the glasses, you're like, sup? You know, like you're like a movie star. And you even have narrative based around that. So if you put them on, you'll start being like, I'm a superstar. Somebody be all, dude, you lost your gun. And be like, that's what superstars do. We don't need guns in movies. And people be like, this is not a movie. But because you have a high superstar rating from or drama from your glasses and maybe a trench coat you found, your attitude is
incredible.
dramatically
like
different.
That.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
I really want to play this game. This sounds right up my alley.
It's
Are
mind
you going to
blowing.
review it in full, or are you just going to
I don't know if I can finish it because I was planning on leaving for the weekend, and when that went away, I'm trying to put everything, figure out what I can cover. If I probably will. When I've done them here now and on a podcast, but I do want to do a video impression and just show some people some graphics because, well, here, let me show you something in your Discord. This is the skill list right there. That's just the skill list. Look at those names and tell me those names aren't weird.
Sorry,
empathy is normal. Oh,
actually,
yeah.
You know what I'm gonna do? Can I do this off my phone? I can. Gotcha. Here we go.
So there's I would say rhetoric sounds somewhat, but visual calculus.
Yep.
Yeah, and you're just like, what's this? What's visual calculus? I sort of
decor.
Esprit de corps is how well you get along with other police force.
Wow. Shivers.
But electrochemistry, shivers. And the first time shivers came up as a skill, I was like, uh-oh, I don't know what that is, and I don't know how many points I put into it. And you can't, I was in the middle of a conversation, so I can't look at the character sheet.
Mm-hmm. Encyclopedia, that's kind of cool.
Oh, and by the way, every single skill hurts you if you have it too high. So if you have too much encyclopedia...
Is red, or is that just...
Correct, because what will happen is if you have it too high, that'll take over your inner monologue. So, for example, I had encyclopedia really high, and I went into a place, and my encyclopedic knowledge just kept posting facts in the narrative. It was technically mud is created from dirt and fucking magnesium, and I'm like, no, I don't need to know that. And it was just filling it. So you want to watch what you're doing.
How do you balance that out? Are those skills on the left, like intellect, psyche, can you increase those to kind of increase the threshold? Essentially,
I have, from what I understand, only drugs allow you to increase those. But drugs, so they allow you to raise the cap, but drugs also lower skills. So you can increase physical by taking amphetamines, right? But you'll lose mental skill abilities. They'll go down one. Okay. You can also raise basic things with clothing. Yeah, for sure. Clothing and items. You can so like I said, some clothes will be I've seen clothes that are +1 to psyche, logic. Not endurance, pain threshold for sure. Wife beater, by the way, those white shirts that guys wear in in cops episodes. If you put one of those on, your perception,
perfect description. That's where
your ability. When other people see you, they'll call you dirty and stinky. They'll literally be like, "Man, you look nasty" if you show up. But your physical ability to impose on others actually goes up. So it's crazy. You'll walk in, they'll be like, "You look dirty." And you'll be like, "Listen to me." And they'll be like, "Okay, man, okay." Because they don't know if you're some psycho wearing a wife beater. It's just...
I like that.
Dude, it is nuts, Matty. I never expected it to be that nuts. But I think it's because it's an RPG. They've spent so much... your friends play
D&D. It's not
D&D.
like combat. It's just
There is combat.
Oh,
there is combat, but not turn... and not...
I think if I remember, it looked like the
skills
old
rolls based. Yeah, it's not you're not moving your character. It's the skills being rolled in the narrative description.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I've been playing. It's
awesome.
It's beyond belief. It's weird to say. It's so weird.
I like the sound of it though. I mean, you convinced me essentially in 24 minutes. For me, I've been playing.
To at least check it.
Yeah, man. I mean, because the thing is, I remember seeing someone linked me on Twitter the gameplay, and I watched it. I was like, "Fuck me, this looks right up my alley." And then I kind of forgot about it. And then I saw you tweeting about it, and I'm like, "Why does this name look familiar?" And then you started talking about it here, and I looked up the screenshot, and I can't remember how I could describe it, but I saw it, and I was like, "Yep, this is the game I was just shown a couple of months ago." And I was like, "How did this fly under the radar for so long?" It looks perfect for the Switch, which is why I'm a little hesitant.
I know. Yep, I agree.
A little hesitant, but I might bite the bullet anyway, maybe in the winter. For me, what I've been playing is a little bit of Turtles in Time on the arcade machine when I want to, which has been fun, but more relatable and more of a discussion-worthy topic would be I've been playing Catherine Full Body. And this was a game I ignored for a really long time because thematically, It didn't sound interesting. It was just,
Right.
I kind of always surmised it as like, this guy cheats and you're going to figure out his love life. And I'm like, well, fuck cheaters. I don't want to fucking play that shit. Like, that was my actual stance on it. And Full Body came out, which for those who don't know is kind of like the re-release with brand new content. They added like new dungeons modes. They added Rin, which is another option that you can choose. And I said, all right, I got to have an open mind. I got to give this a shot, especially it's from Atlas. And a lot of people said this is like one of their best games next to Persona, and I hold Persona in like very high regard. Like it's one of my favorite series of all time. So I was like, all right, if people are going to compare this to Persona, I got to try it out. And I got to say I was wrong. Catherine Full Body's really good, really good game. So much like how you described Disco, you'll note during this conversation, there's really nothing quite like Catherine, because it's like a puzzle game. But we'll start off. We're gonna keep this spoiler free. But like, the game sort of starts off where this guy's in the middle of like the way that it's written. You get this feeling that this guy's been in a long relationship. They're sort of going through the motions now. They're talking about their future. He's moving into the next phase of his life. They're talking marriage and all that stuff. And then he's struggling with that. And then one night he goes to bed. He has a nightmare, which is where the puzzles come in. And the puzzles are just moving cubes in creative ways. And it sounds so simple. Like, oh man, I'm just pulling out a cube here, climbing up, pulling out two here, moving up a little bit higher, and creating stair sets and whatnot, creating bridges. But there's just something really satisfying about figuring it out, and that's coming from someone who hates puzzle games. But anyway, he wakes up from this nightmare, and there's a woman in his bed. And he was drunk the night before, but there's a woman in his bed, and he's like, who the fuck are you? And she's like, oh, I'm Catherine. So now there's two Catherines in the game. One's with a C, one's with a K. And he's just like, oh my God, did I just cheat on the woman I want to marry? And so as you go through this game now, you'll end up at the bar and you'll have your phone out. You'll be sending texts to these girls. You'll be talking to them on the phone. You'll be having relationships with like the people in the bar, which you'll see appear in the nightmares, because the rumor is the nightmare is called the Woman's Wrath. Which is like all the men who have cheated are appearing there, but then you start to see men who haven't cheated appear there, so you're like, what's going on now? But those people at the bar are in these nightmares, and so they'll sit down and they'll start to vent their problems in the nightmare, because all you see in the nightmare are sheep. Like, that's what I'm saying. This game is crazy. Like, you just see sheep. They don't see humans. You see yourself as a human, but so when they start venting about their problems, they don't know who they're talking to, and they say that the people in the nightmare will never remember, and even your character doesn't remember, but you as the player remembers. So when you see someone upset in the dream and they start venting to you, and then you see like similar characteristics of clothing in the bar, and you go and talk to them, you're like, oh wait, that's Morgan, that's the cop. He's someone who's saying that he killed his wife. Why is he here then? And you start talking to him and getting to know him as a person in the bar, and like, does he deserve this fate? And as you make these conversation choices, it's really not just like I wouldn't even call it a dating sim in the first place, but it's not just about picking a waifu. It's really about morally guiding your main character through this entire journey. And as you make these choices, there's a bar that goes to the left or right, which is like your good karma, your bad karma for Fallout fans. And there are moments during cutscenes where there's internal monologues, and depending where you are on that bar, that changes, and in turn the story changes. And you see very interesting perspectives on love, on relationships, and the way that you see Vincent mature and grow. It's very much a unique game, and I think it provides some really warped perspectives on love, but it provides some really healthy perspectives on love and relationship building, and it very much understands what it's all about from all facets, even the fucked up ones. And I admire the game for that. There's a lot of fan service in the terms of, well, actually legitimate fan service. They'll send like one of the girls who you wake up next to in bed. You're like, who is this girl? And I've made the decision because like I fucking can't stand cheating. So I'm like pushing her away. Like anytime she texts me, I'm like, get the fuck away from me. Don't talk to me. Lose my number. That type of shit. And but she'll send me like pictures of herself, and so there's like fan service in that way. And you're like, no, I don't want that. But on the other end, there's fan service, like they have Persona tracks in the game. There's like Easter eggs all over the place, that type of stuff. So really unique game, really hard to sell people on it though. Like I think even throughout this whole conversation, you can't really sell someone on it It's something that once you play and you get a feeling for what the game actually is, like it's not a dating game. That's the thing, because I thought it was that, like, oh, this guy cheated, he's an asshole, and you're gonna pick his love life, and it's like it's so much more than that. That's really just one small facet. It's kind of the core of the narrative and some of the funny moments throughout the game. It's a really funny game. But it's really about like the relationships and the humanization and this mysterious nightmare that's happening that's apparently killing people. There's a lot of interesting things happening around the game that round it out. It's not just about that dating. So, like I said, really hard sell, but really unique game.
What's it on?
PS4.
Does it feel like a graphically? How's it done? Does it feel like a what do you call it?
Looks like Persona 5.
Okay, so it's delivered in that. So it's more pictures and
okay, yeah. So I thought you meant like how does it actually look like? I think it's actually in the P5 engine when they remade it. I'm not sure, but
okay.
But it looks like Persona 5 graphically. When it comes to cutscenes, they're more fully animated than Persona. It's not just like the text boxes. And there are a lot more anime cutscenes than in typical Atlas games, so you'll have a lot more storytelling coming in that form, which is nice. It's like a reward after the puzzles, because the puzzles can get tough. I've been stumped by a couple. The good news too is that because of so many endings, I was like, man, if this game's long, that kind of sucks. It's not super long. I'm close to the end now. I'm about 8 hours in, 9 hours in actually, and it's apparently, I think it's like a 14-hour game. You know, it's not super long, and the way I've been playing it, I've been playing as a good guy, and I'm like kind of curious as I'm going through it. Man, you could be a real douche in this game. You know, there are moments where I'm like, what if I was on the other end of the spectrum? Like, this situation would be playing out in a whole different way.
Right.
So it makes you really curious, right? And so I could see myself going back to it, because right now I'm in that in-between phase. I'm just waiting for the Outer Worlds. That's what my coverage is kind of hinging on. That's what I want to play mostly. So I've just been kind of biding my time, clearing out games that are in my backlog. I had between Control, Chrono Trigger, and Catherine Full Body. And I was like, you know what? I know Control's even shorter, but I was like, you know what? I'll give Catherine Full Body a rip, see if I actually like it, and I've loved it. It's been a really fun time, especially playing it, like I said, in share play with my friend. We've been going through it together, so it's been fun to like laugh along with someone, solve the puzzles together, watch the story unfold. It's been a really, really good time.
Yeah, it sounds when it comes to the puzzles, are they always the blocks?
Yep. But they'll change the block types. There'll be traps or springs, ice blocks, blocks that don't move, blocks that move really slow. I don't know if I mentioned bomb blocks, but there are those as well. And then there's little collectibles as you go up the blocks. There's power-ups you can get, like jumping 2 blocks high, or putting down a block that creates another set of blocks so you can create extra bridges to help you get up. So you're always just scaling upwards. And it doesn't sound fun. Nothing. I understand how people are probably feeling as I go on about this game. Nothing about it sounds that great. In all actuality, it's a very weird game. It's a tough sell, but if you do give it a chance, I don't think you'll regret it. It's definitely. I don't feel as confident about it when I suggest it like a Danganronpa. I'm like, yeah, that's a weird pick, but that's a game I know if you give it a chance, you'll like it. Catherine's like, if you like the whole building relationships with random people, and I'm not talking girls, just like relationships with other folks and seeing them kind of overcome their turmoils, or I imagine if you go the other path, a more negative path, these people will fail in overcoming their demons. I think that may not appeal to everybody, especially because puzzles are a little more niche, but if you can get past that, you can find a game here that you really enjoy.
Interesting.
Really interesting.
Honestly, when you said you were doing the puzzles and they were blocks and you woke up having possibly had sex, I legit thought you were going to explain to me that puzzle, once you got out of it, was like you inserting
no.
And I was like, that would be crazy if all the blocks had something to do with this other alternate world, and that you were having sex and didn't realize it. I just thought that's sort of a missed opportunity.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the day the game ended up like that, because, like I said, it's very thematically driven. It's very creative. It's so different. But it's such a... I can't emphasize one thing enough. it is a funny game. It definitely ranks up there with like games that have made me laugh out loud a lot, like South Park, Borderlands 2. Like it's a funny game because you just see this main character get into these situations and how well acted it is. And the shit he says, I don't know. It's so human. That's the thing. I think that's what I like about the story so much. It's such a human story, despite some of the supernatural tendencies it is included. It's very much a human story, and I like that a lot. It's kind of different because Persona is always like, Persona, and you're ripping off masks, and you got these crazy creatures, and the school life is like what's cool about it. So I just think Atlas has a good grip on making like these very humane interactions. It's a really cool game. I'm glad I gave it a shot. But that is what I'm playing.
Weird as fuck.
I want to be playing Asgard's Wrath though, for sure. That game looks fucking cool.
Dude, it's crazy too. Like I was telling you prior to the thing, it's so, Insomniac, I don't know if you remember this, but Insomniac did do a full VR game called Edge of Nowhere. It didn't really it was a third-person VR, which is very disconcerting if you play VR. It can make you pretty ill playing a third-person VR game because VR is more about looking through a person's eyes.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, what we would get, how long it would be till we got a full third-person, style, a full AAA style VR game. But it's nice, and the game is reviewing really well from everybody.
Got like a 9.4 at IGN, I think.
Yeah, I got a very high score from them, and then what was interesting was also the VR companies, as in those who cover VR normally, they all rated it high, which usually doesn't happen because, maybe somebody will like Astrobot if they're new to VR, but then somebody who's done VR maybe isn't as impressed or whatever.
Okay.
But here, it seems like with this game in particular, I was really surprised to see those reviews and how well it was doing. And then I checked it out, and yeah, it's not perfect, but it's definitely, you can tell it's a full game. It's not an experience game, which I think a lot of VR titles are. Yeah. Shorter. They're not as in-depth. This one is like a full game. And nice. From what I understand, did you see the length of time?
30 hours. That's what caught my attention. I was like, 30 hours in a VR game.
Yeah. Other than Fallout, other than X Rebirth, which was a port, both those were ports. Skyrim's a port. You don't get that.
Yeah.
You don't get those.
Seems really unique.
So, why did you like it when you saw what'd you see? A review, a picture?
I watched some reviews and I was just like, this is what I wanted. That was my thought when I saw it. I was like, this is why I held out on VR, because I wanted an actual game. And there have been games, but like you said, that it's like, what's the game where you hit the beats and stuff? Beat Saber. Like experience-driven ones or temporary little fun gimmicky ones. But this is like, wow, it's an actual game and it's a well-realized world, and there is lore, and there is a cool combat system that does have the VR functionality. And I was like, I could see myself loving this, because I've always been sold on VR as fun and elevating games. Absolutely, the only reason I haven't invested in it is because there hasn't been a game like that where I looked at it and went, well, okay, that looks really good. And I'm not just talking graphically like that. I want to be in that world. I want to explore. And when you have that headset on, that's all you're seeing. It's not like you're seeing the light off to the side, your game rack in the background or whatever. You're just seeing that game world. You're there. And I think based off how great it looks, that can help out a lot. And the combat looked like it had its own rhythm and flow. So it just looked like exactly what I wanted. So that's why I started looking into VR again to get an Oculus Rift, because I was like, all right, I think now I gotta get ready to pull the trigger within this next couple of months.
Yeah, it's crazy just how much something like that, when you finally see it, and see a game like that, how much I personally feel like this will probably help all VR. It's not only that game. DCS got released and it's fairly good in VR, but there hasn't been a big company other than Sony with Astrobot, and it's always been PSVR, which, not to be rude, but is so rough looking. It's hard to sell it, and that game doesn't really look rough looking. It looks like you said,
clean.
It looks like a full real title that is taking advantage of high def headsets on the PC.
Yeah, I agree. All right, now we get into the patron questions. Let's get this one started. We're going to do a sort of rapid fire fly through because we're about 2 hours in now and we're just starting what normally is our longest section. Yeah, I know, right? That's why I was like, uh-oh. We have such a short list of topics that we always find a way. All right, Karak. Sci-Fi Man asks us, what are we doing for Halloween? And then, do you expect Bethesda to monetize it? And 3, shout out to your reviews lately. The unbiased work has been much appreciated. Well, thank you, Sci-Fi Man. So, what are we doing for Halloween? I just want to watch some flicks.
Yeah, I try to celebrate it. My wife hates it. She's not a big Halloween fan, so I think I'd be like you. I'll probably watch a movie, maybe. Maybe do a stream. I've talked about that but it wouldn't be me. It'd probably be the patrons, and I'd sit in. Or I don't know. Yeah, how about Until Dawn? Would you play that? Are you a game player who plays certain games based on the season?
I like that. Yeah, I like that. For example, I always liked saving the level of Bully, the snow level. I always
amen.
Yeah,
yep.
I think it was where you fight the gnomes or something like that, or something like that. I forgot it, but I remember using that one for actually a video a while back. Yeah, so I remember doing that. I like the idea. I played Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon on my DS like a couple Halloweens ago. So yeah, I like to do that type of stuff. But
Bully also has Halloween, remember? Where you dress up like the Karate Kid guy with the skeleton suit and shit like that. So good, so good.
I've just wanted to watch House on Haunted Hill, so I think that's gonna be what I do.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, my wife doesn't like horror stuff, so usually
I usually don't. But that movie, oh man, I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid. Look how great I turned out. Natural Calamity says, I have a withdrawal with fantasy games. Is there any fantasy or medieval games I should look into to fill this void in my life?
Greedfall?
Yeah, that was my answer. Greedfall is what you're looking for. It's a mixture of, exactly, you said fantasy or medieval, try both. That's Greedfall.
Yeah.
Black Dow asks, how much do you think Final Fantasy VII Remake will affect the development of Final Fantasy 16, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's going to be I think they're separate teams, aren't they?
Yeah, they should be. They're separate teams. I don't think it'll impact it at all. I think if anything, it gives 16 some necessary breathing room because 15 was really good at launch, and over time, as I played it more and more, and I went back for updates, I don't regret playing it a lot. I don't regret recommending it, but I definitely am not as big on it as I was. I think the combat needed refining and testing for people to be like, hey, we shouldn't have the block button show up in the middle of the screen, and hey, we shouldn't have just holding circle be how you attack. I think there's a lot of fine-tuning needed to be there. More in-depth side quests, stuff along those lines, which I think having like a remake in between that, even if it's a full-scale AAA production, I don't think that would hurt at all. You think it'll impact 16?
I don't. No, I think they're separate teams. They're probably unconnected as you could be. That's the thing about Final Fantasies, right? They're always unconnected anyway. Other than, obviously, there's a couple, the X series. I know that a couple are, technically connected, but that's their strength. They just call it Final Fantasy. It's all fan based now. Like the love of fans. They could call a fucking wrestling game Final Fantasy, and people still be like, "What? There's a new Final Fantasy game?" So,
Paul asks, do you believe that voice acting is a realistic career choice? I'm just a 20-year-old who can do a few accents and impressions. They're passable to an American, but probably not to anyone outside of the country. I was also a drama kid in high school for 4 years, so I've got some minor acting chops. I'm just wondering if it's even worth pursuing. I haven't gotten a single fucking clue as to what I want to do with my life, and this is the only thing I could be passionate about. Be brutally honest with me here. No sugar-coated bullcrap. Just give me both barrels. Apologies for the drawn-out question. I hope you were both well. Well, no, dude, we have no problem with that. We love to help out our patrons here. Number one, you're 20. It takes a while to figure shit out. Not everyone has it together right away. Certainly I wouldn't have if YouTube weren't a thing. I genuinely would be like, there was a reason why when I was in college I was taking general studies off the bat because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't feel passionate about anything outside of video games, and I didn't think it was realistic for me to get a career in video games. Fortunately, things played out. Thank you all for supporting me and Karak as well to get to this type of point. But sometimes things play out that way. What people forget with voice acting and voice work is it's not just being like a character in a video game. Like there are commercials, there's radio stuff. Like there's a lot of work you can do with your voice if you're passionate about it. Like for me, I think I could do a couple of characters in a game with the amount of voice work I do I guess do in a sense. Through my YouTube channel, I not change my voice, but I'll elevate it sometimes. I'll deepen it.
Yeah.
I'll give it a different tone, and I think it would be more fitted for advertisement work, for promotional work. But I'm sure I could do some characters. But people take a very narrow look at that, so that would be my advice, man. Like, don't just limit your ability to that one thing that you can do. I have one of my dad's good friends does voice work, and he does like voices for the radio. He does do some video game characters, but most of his work comes through advertisements. And I've always viewed personally, and it may just be because of my current standpoint in my career, but I've always viewed my pursuit in voice acting as a side gig, not something that is my only gig. You know, because I've heard that a lot of bigger voice actors like aren't, despite their fame and whatnot, they are like not rich. You know, they don't get paid a shit ton. Some of them get paid well, but they're not like super crazy pockets full of money from what I've heard. So that would be my take. But don't let that derail you, right? Like, I'm not acting like I make a ton of money on YouTube at all. Demonetization's tough. It's really inconsistent. But what keeps me going is because I like doing this. So do you like voice acting? Do you like voice work? Do you care about what you want to do? That has always been my driving force in my work, because if I don't give a fuck, I don't want to do it, and I don't end up doing it. That's kind of been my mantra since I was a kid. Not like I don't give a fuck, but like if I'm not interested, it's really hard for me to try. Like, that's why like I was an okay student. I could have been a great student because I'm smart, but I was not, because I fucking hated school. So that would be my advice, man. You know, you're 20, you're still figuring things out, but if you love it, go for it.
Yeah, and I would say what you should do is go to voicebunny.com, make an account. They ask you for a voice sample of reading stuff, and they will review you, and they're brutally honest. And once you're reviewed successfully, they then allow you to adjust how much you want to be paid for work, and that you can put in categories, and then you have an account there, and when people need you, and Voice Bunny is not the only one. There's about 6 or 7 companies that do this online. They all usually want to hear you read something, and then they can review you. They'll tell you you've got sibilants in your audio, or you've got warble, or you've got whatever. You fix those, and then your samples up there, and then people can buy your services for hospitals, for whatever. So my wife's best friend, her husband was a voice actor, was well paid, but it wasn't in the gaming sphere. He was very well paid outside the gaming sphere, unrealistically so. And one of the reasons why is because he continued to plug away until pretty soon he had hundreds of voice samples where he was doing hospitals and 911 centers and all this stuff. That's where you can get jobs. And because they need to switch so often, sometimes voice actors leave. So you may think, oh, well, if 911 recorded, please hold, they'll just leave it like that. No, they absolutely won't. Whether it be audio quality or something you've said, they'll need somebody who can do new options, and they'll hire somebody to record all that stuff. There's definitely jobs you can do. There's also online companies that want to do PowerPoints about science and stuff. So they'll be like, when a meteorite strikes the Earth, what would happen? And you can watch a YouTube video of like PowerPoints. Many times those companies don't want the same voice actors. They want different ones. And they hire from Voice Bunny as well. So I would say on the side, as Matty said, don't jump into it full. But on the side, do it. It's free. It's free, and you might get a job. You might get a little bit of money from it for just saying option one. You know, who knows? You might suddenly hear your voice on Allstate's insurance commercial. You have no clue.
No, absolutely, man. And yeah, I feel like my perspective on income is different than others, because I'm a believer of like not just putting your eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
like, not
me
just
too.
a voice actor, or in my case, not just a YouTuber. But when I took about a month off now. But streaming, that helps. Patreon, that helps. When I do voice work, rather, that helps. I still like help shovel driveways and shit. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I like working for money. Like, I've always been a big believer in that. Like, I hate free handouts and that type of shit. Like, I like to just, put my work in and earn it. So I've always just enjoyed that hard days, honest work kind of mentality. And so just don't limit your pot to one. Like, if you can go to school and learn how to, we'll say, be a vet, But then at the same time, you have great voice talent, and you could do that on the side on weekends, like for a couple of hours on a Saturday, and make some extra money. Like, why the fuck not, right? Like, and
Yep.
eventually maybe that could turn into your full-time thing. Don't limit your options. It's the worst thing you can do. All right. Xenos Machina. This is probably just going to sound like a conspiracy theory, but do you think there is a connection between Praise 2's strange cancellation due to, quote, quality standards, end quote, coming from a company that would release games infested with bugs? That would Arcane rebooting Prey and going in a completely different direction in Starfield. I might just be refusing to accept its cancellation, but something always seemed peculiar about the way it was scrapped. It looked so promising at E3 and not long after it was killed off. I just have a feeling that something else was going on behind the scenes, such as Bethesda Game Studios liking what they saw to the point where they decided to take it from Human Head and rename it Starfield and just change it enough to make it less noticeable. I know we know very little about Starfield, but I was just wondering if there was anything to this, or if I might be wearing a tinfoil hat too tightly on the top of my head and cutting off the circulation.
Bro, he's wearing two.
Yeah, man, you're doubled up.
Yeah, you're doubled up on that tinfoil, man. That's.
I like how he's thinking though. He did connect some sensible dots, right? Like I didn't think he sounded crazy. I just was like, damn, you're thinking deep.
Yeah, that's like somebody really high at night at your house, and they start talking to you about stars, and pretty soon you're like, what he's saying makes a little bit of sense, but it's still fucking batshit.
Yeah,
insane.
You're like, all right, go to bed, man.
Prey 2 also, like Matty said earlier, games do get canceled, and Prey 2 doesn't surprise me because what they showed, that was gameplay, obviously, but we have no clue if it was a Watch Dogs style gameplay.
Yeah, I think it was a Watch Dogs style gameplay. That game looked off the charts initially. Nothing like
I would agree. I would agree.
Looked so good.
It almost looked like a fake, like gameplay, but fake
Scripted.
gameplay. Like, yeah, it was like very exact in what we were seeing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Vault 101 guy, he has a couple of questions. Will we be getting PS5s on launch day, Karak?
Will we get? You cut out. Will we get PS5?
Oh, sorry, PS5 on launch day.
Yeah, but only because I review.
Yeah,
games.
same. Yeah, if I were a consumer, I'd wait.
I would wait on both for sure.
Do you think Sony is done with E3 or doesn't really care for it? It seems the way it seems this way because of State of Play and some of the big announcements they have had would typically be announced at E3, such as The Last of Us and the PS5 announcement. Yeah, I think they're moving away from it. I think next E3 will be their last E3.
I would say, I do think they'll be at next E3. Mm-hmm. So after that, I don't know. But I think Jim, the new guy, Jim Ryan, he is much more E3 based than, because remember Shane, he had that shitty E3 where it was all highfalutin with fucking violins and oboes. I just have a feeling Jim is much more, he seems more hardcore on some stuff, and I don't see him passing up an opportunity to toot his horn. I could be wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely new lifeblood, so that could change. Ben Jam asks us, what is the best birthday/Christmas gift you have ever gotten? Oh man, wow. Whoa.
I got one.
All right.
The most thoughtful one was from the most thoughtless person in my life. One of the worst humans I've ever known. But at the time, I sold a Boris Vallejo. He's the one who originally painted Conan. It was a big art book. And I got this art book. It was about $400, and this was when I was really young. So imagine $800 or something like that. It was a collector's edition, and I had to pay rent, and I sold it. And my girlfriend at the time found out where I sold it, and she went and rebought it back and gave it to me. Which
wow.
Just goes to show you that a monster can still do good things.
Wow. That's very nice of that person. All right.
Yeah, that was the only thing, Matty, ever they did that was nice.
All right,
but
thanks.
That was
I'll see you later. Man, I'm trying to think because, I've gotten some great gifts, and I've always had the mentality of, like, I don't play favorites with gifts. Like, this is the favorite, or this is better than this one. I can say some of my favorite gifts. One was for... nope, can't say that. Fuck. One was from my girlfriend. It was for my... Was it for my birthday or Christmas? I'm blanking out right now. She got me a gift, and it was a drawing of all my favorite characters across, like, games, shows.
Oh, that's cool.
It was like a painting, and I really liked that just because it was like a very sentimental gift. I'm a sucker for those. I love those. And you could tell, like, she put a lot of time into it. It looked like it took forever because I like so many characters, and she had, like, every single one of them. And it involved her going behind the scenes, like asking my best friends, like, hey, does Matt like this person, who does he like? I just want to make sure I'm getting like all the right ones and they're all accounted for, and like it's crazy. Like she even put fucking SpongeBob on there, like just everybody I love. it was pretty funny. Cool. Yeah. One of my favorite gifts is actually hanging right in front of me, Karak. It's from you. It's the H.A.M Radio comic thing. That was fucking awesome.
That was fun. That was fun to do. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite gifts. That was not birthday or Christmas. That was just a random gift, and I thought that was, I've always had this sitting here. I think it's the coolest thing ever. Yeah, man. Like I'm just very big on labors of love and thoughtful gifts.
Yeah.
I have like good gift stories. I remember one time, and this is when I was like a bratty teenager, my mom got me Assassin's Creed 2 for Christmas, even though I said I didn't want it. And I remember saying to her, like, oh, I didn't kind of want this. Like I said, fucking shitty move. And she was like, okay, Matt, like, don't be rude. We can return it. And I felt like a dick afterwards. And I decided, you know what? I might be wrong here. And I gave it a chance, and I fucking loved the game. I loved the game.
Oh, and that's why you're never a dick during a Christmas.
Yeah, and I immediately went out and apologized to my mom again because I felt really bad about it. I still, to this day, I tell her about it all the time. I'm like, I feel bad. She's like, Matt, like you were fucking, 11, 12? Like you were learning. You don't do it now. I was like, I know, but still, like I felt like such a douchebag. So yeah, there are great stories like that. I remember even recently my parents got us a PS4, or when they got us our Xbox. There's just so many gifts. I could go down a whole list of them all. Great question. Spooky Shark asks us, what is the favorite thing to do with your family and or friends during the holiday season? Wow, everyone's in the Christmas spirit, and we haven't even hit fucking Halloween yet.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Love this.
So do I. I'm such a holiday freak.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing is once Thanksgiving's over, every Saturday after that, my family and I have had a tradition all my life where every Saturday we do what's called a snack party. So my mom will go to the store the night before, and she'll get like all cool, crazy, fun things to make and eat that we've never had before, and we'll all make them, and then we'll have these snacks while we watch holiday movies. And so we pick 2 movies a night and we watch them every Saturday, and we have all these snacks during it. And it's one of my favorite things that we do as a tradition every year.
Ours all ended because my parents don't live near me anymore. But prior to that, we would watch like Christmas Vacation every single Christmas, like no matter what. Like that was the Chevy Chase, the old National Lampoons. And it was funny because my dad was big into Christmas, but he wasn't as goofy as Chevy Chase. But the stupid stuff that happens in families when you get a bunch of people together, some of that rings true in that movie. And so it was funny to get our family together. But yeah, we don't really, unfortunately, have any ability to really, I mean, like I told you, they live over mountains and it's snowy. Yeah. So it's like we don't have vehicles that can like get there and shit. So unfortunately, we don't really have any kind of holiday event at all anymore. We do a little Christmas tree here. I'm into Christmas more than anybody around me, though. Fuck, dude. I had a Christmas tree up until July, sorry.
How do you keep that shit alive, or is it a fake tree?
No, it's a fake one.
Okay, I was going to say, Jesus Christ.
We outfitted it with July fucking shit, dude. Like fake fireworks and stuff. Like, yeah, I'm a huge... We still have the Christmas tree lights up. Never took them down.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. I love Christmas.
Yeah, same. No, I'm the same exact way. I can't get enough of it. It's funny because my girlfriend was not a big Christmas person. She was like, whatever, it's Christmas. And until she saw how my family was this last Christmas was when she really like got into it. And she was like, okay, like, I get it now. She always liked Christmas, but like it was a lot more special because she saw like, oh, this is a 24-year-old guy. Like, look how much he's into Christmas. So,
it's just fun, man. It's just fun.
All right, scrolling through. Great 851 has 2 questions. One's for you, Karak. The first one we can both answer. Working full-time and having limited amount of free time, I often notice I'm wasting too much time on endless YouTube videos or bloated, strung-out TV series. While this can be entertaining in the moment, afterwards it felt like a waste of time and missed opportunities that could have been spent with deeper experiences like reading a book or diving into a new game. Do you have any tips to help eliminate the chaff? I think this is a very thoughtful question because you seem aware.
I don't believe it's chaff, dude.
Yeah, because here's the thing. If it's entertaining in the moment and then you feel regret afterwards, I'm not talking like you hooked up with someone and you're like, oh, fuck, why did I do that? Like,
I knew where you're going with that.
I'm saying like in the case of like, Innocent, you watched the TV show. I feel like you're guilt tripping yourself for allowing yourself to unwind.
Yep.
Which is something I do a lot, and I'm sure Karak does the same thing.
I do.
Because for our jobs, there's not that certainty, that guarantee at the end of the week. And I know it's become in the industry kind of more common practice wherever you work. It's like there is that uncertainty. But there is less so in our line, where we feel like if we're not working, we could be making more money, or we could be securing our future more. And so it's harder for us, like today, because yes, last night I was up till about midnight working more on my secret project, and I got home, I fell asleep almost immediately when I was really tired already, and I woke up today and I was like, man, I am shot. And like, I just had to chill in bed until this podcast to just let myself recover, which is really fucking hard for me to do, especially on a weekday, where normally I save that for the weekends. So yeah, man, let yourself unwind. If you feel like you're not spending it productively, catch yourself in the moment and be like, you know what, let me read a book now. That's it. Just stop yourself and go for it.
And I read books and I don't feel productive sometimes. I think that no matter what you do, like somebody will say a TV show or movie's not productive. Depends on what you're doing. Because if you can gain some, like if you're a writer, study the dialogue. If you want to talk about composition in a game, compare it to the plot you just saw in your movie. I think a lot of people get hard on themselves for no real... I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, unless you're unhealthy and you're literally just fucking eating, Ritz crackers off your bare chest with your feet up, not moving, using a fucking stick to change a channel, then you're a fatty.
Last night, Last night, I literally was in bed with my shirt off and had a Ritz cracker on my chest.
Well, see, there you go, boom! Matty just found out I have a webcam hacked at his house. I just watched the inside of his home. Oh my god! There we go.
Like, what the fuck?
ESP, baby.
Holy shit. Second question's for you. Could Karak talk about getting into airsoft or paintball as a hobby? I believe you mentioned it in the past. Tried searching my local area for some groups, but nothing came up. None of my friends are into it. Where do I start?
Oy. It depends. Go fast. It depends on your local laws, so verify those. That might be why people's not interested. If your friends aren't interested, you might find out if they're sedate or not, because they might be sort of not a lazy person, but you know what I mean. They're not as physical. That's fine. The easiest way I would describe it is you can start at $99 and get a very good gun and a ton of ammo. I would not go with a random group. I would still continually try to talk to people around you, and it may be unfortunate, but you may find out that that's not a what do you call it? A hobby you can do. I have friends in Australia, and they're not allowed to have them without big legalities, just because they look like real guns, and so they just can't do it. So without knowing where you are, those are the steps. I would try to talk my friends into it. Dude, you can get Halo guns. So if your friends are like, those look too real, if they say they look too real, go out and get a Nerf gun or something and be like, let's play. Some people just look at it as cowboys and Indians, and I got to tell you, when you do airsoft the first time, you'll be like, first of all, you're going to be dead physically. Second, you're going to be like, this is not fucking cowboys and Indians because I got shot. Yeah. So it just depends on where you are, and your legal can be an issue depending on what state you're in.
Airsoft would be fun. I kind of want to try that.
It's the most astoundingly awesome hobby in the world. It replaced D&D, which I can't believe I ever said, but I still have video games, airsoft, and now D&D below it. It is such good fun.
It's awesome. Last question comes from Mike Fury. He asks if we have any tattoos. I am tattoo-less.
Fuck no, I don't have tattoos. It's nasty.
It's nasty.
Oh, dude.
You don't like tattoos at all?
No.
Wow.
No, my wife's got one. Drives me fucking absolutely insane.
Do you mind if I ask where?
Oh, on her back, right here.
Back?
It's in Chinese because she's Chinese. It doesn't drive me nuts. Like, I look at her when she walks by and go, I fucking want to punch that. I just don't like defacing your flesh at all.
I get it.
I'm not a big fan of earrings. I'm fine with. But like nose rings, that kind of stuff, it always, nope. It's just distasteful to me for whatever reason. Probably growing up in a time when it wasn't as big, and you get accustomed to see, especially when people look at me, they're like, they think I would have tats and fucking, all this crazy. Yeah, not a fan. Have you ever seen one? Be honest. Have you ever seen a tattoo that you really, really like? That really makes you go, that person's flesh is better. If they're not a burn victim, let's not go that far.
Yes.
Okay, go for it. Can you explain it?
There
or is
was,
it like on somebody's,
I'm trying to forget,
vagina?
I forgot this guy's name, but he had a sleeve, and it had like Pokemon characters that connected to like different games up his arm, and it was just very much a work of art. It looked absolutely awesome. And I've always said if I were to get a tattoo, I'd probably get something symbolic on my back right, or right of my back rather. And then if I ever were to get any more, I would get a sleeve on my right arm. That would be a bunch of games that somehow all mesh together.
I would get something at all. It would have to be viewable to me, if that makes sense.
Right.
If I ever got one.
That's what I've always thought too. But I'm a lot more frail, where I know, let's say I got a bicep tattoo, like straight up, like on the inside, I'd be freaking out. I'd be like, oh god, you're gonna hit bone. So
or you got to work out now so that it looks good. You know, if somebody's like, let me see your tattoo, and you got a little noodle
it's just
arm,
fucking drooping down. You're like, oh, check it out.
That's awesome. That's so bad. And I want to make sure people don't think I'm looking down on people who have them. I just don't like flesh covered.
Yeah, it didn't seem like a personal thing. It seemed more like I just don't like it. Yeah, which I get. That's our last question, Karak. We turned...
He's only got one?
Yeah, well, he had 3, but one of them we answered. The other one...
Oh, okay.
I have my app closed, but like we answered one. I think another one we also somewhat covered, so the last one was... the one we could actually.
Because I was about to say, Furies let us down.
Yeah.
If we only got one, I'd be like,
he tagged me in a message last week. He was like, I didn't sign up to get patronized.
I saw that. It was awesome.
I was just like, hey man, look, your spelling, your grammar. I was like, you got to proofread.
Oh yeah, when you went after him, that was awesome. Yeah, you never know too. Sometimes we'll read them, not even won't even bat an eye, and then other times we're in a playful mood, and it's like, be prepared, baby.
Yeah, because like you could tell people were on watch, because like Xenos Machina was like, hey man, sorry if my sentence structure wasn't that good. That's what he capped off his message with, and I was like, yeah, fucking right. Watch your shit here. You're on our show now.
Look at any of my sentences in your Discord, and I cannot tell anybody they should be worried about what they write, but I still do tease everybody anyway.
All right, that'll wrap up episode 223 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast. If you got this deep, I don't really have a hashtag prepared for you, despite opening the episode. So I guess what we will do is give you one right now, which will be... Did we do anything involving grammar?
Our big things was PS5. I'm just thinking what we covered the most of. I sort of... No, I'm not going to say that one.
Isn't this the best part of the show, where you can sit with us in silence? It's like you're actually with us.
And they're probably right now thinking of 50, right? You know how it is when you watch a video and somebody thinks for a second in a podcast, and you're like, dude, it's the game.
I thought it would be best. It's always best that we do it this way. We just don't have it prepared.
I think so too.
You know, because then it becomes too serious.
You could do something about the holidays, because we talked about games and holidays, and I think we're in the holidays, like, you know.
Yeah.
It seems like your patrons are in the holiday.
Yeah, you guys are in the holiday spirit, so hashtag holiday spirit.
There we go. Yeah, I have no problem with that. Because everybody seems to be into that mode now.
Yeah, that's totally good with us. So you got this deep, you want to let us know at G27status and at Jeremy Penter on Twitter. Tag us with the hashtag holiday spirit. Let us know what you thought of the show, if there's anything we can improve here, or if there's anything we should keep on doing. We've been getting a lot of feedback from you guys, and we really appreciate you guys, and we hope you stick with us through the next set of episodes. So with that, I will stop there. Karak, anything else you'd like to interject?
I just want to say thanks to everybody who posted on Twitter the last tag, because a bunch of people responded.
A lot of people saying, where's Sean?
Yeah, it was cool to be able to see it and go, okay, people are getting, to the end, because you never quite know.
Yeah, so we really appreciate that. And like I said, use it as a chance to connect some feedback to us. If you don't feel like signing up to the Patreon, that's no problem. That's just another way for you to connect without feeling like you've got to pay. So with that, we will end this here, and we will see you guys next week with episode 224. Peace out.
Peace out.